The NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing.com, has officially begun. It's all in control of Brad Davies in that 11 machine. Green flag flies. He's damn near banged up, though. Now the 93 is going to push the 4 of Brian Day all the way up the wall. 4 wide, down the super stretch point in the front. And now the 93-39, the 3 machine goes around. Big trouble in the back. It's the race for the win up front.
Look behind him. They're 3 and 4 wide, trying to make a push to the front as the field gains speed in turn number 1. Kenny Humphrey, if he can rip it back to the start-finish line, will win here at Daytona.
7 laps to go.
Oh,
As you love it.
Here we go.
You love it. The 1 gets around. The 5 gets around. Big jump.
Good evening and welcome to the scenic mountains of Pocono, Pennsylvania, where the road to $10,000 travels through here this evening live on PSR TV and our broadcast partners, MRN Radio and Nessun, as well as iRacing Brazil. You're watching the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. I'm Tony Stevens, joined alongside tonight Joe Cortez. Tim Terry is somewhere between here and Canada, trying to find his way to the booth at the moment. He'll be with us hopefully just a little bit later this evening. And Joe, it's been quite a while. It's been, about a month since we've seen these cars on track after the Richmond race got canceled. It gave these teams and drivers plenty of time to try to master the new car, master the new tire model, and try to find some speed here at the very, very unique Pocono Speedway.
Absolutely. The weakness, this month off, it's actually been exactly a month since we went racing at Texas Motor Speedway, the Great American Speedway. In that period of time, we've had 2 major changes to the iRacing 7. Number 1, the new build came out, which allowed for some new things, new features added to these cars. Also made it a little bit more difficult, a little bit more different factor of reality to these cars out here. So these cars now are going to be driving a little bit different. So this month has given all these drivers a new opportunity to get reacquainted with the cars and be able to get out there and have some more fun and figure out how to make these cars work around the track. And number 2, like you mentioned there, Tony, added the new model. Goodyear added the multi-zone tire this year to NASCAR. iRacing responded with a brand new tire model to all these Gen 6 cars out here. So it means all these drivers now have had a month to figure out what they need to do to make these cars work for them, to make these cars handle the way they used to, and really get accustomed and acquainted with these cars. Now, they're going to be doing all that tonight under race conditions at the tricky triangle of Pocono, which does not make for an easy walk in the park for any of these drivers. 100 laps here at Pocono Raceway. When we were here this time last year, Ray Alfalla went pole to pole. Tonight, he starts 6th. Can he do it again, Tony?
Hard to say if he can do that. It wouldn't surprise me if he does, though, Joe. Ray Alfalla has always been good, especially when it comes to mastering some of the new tire models and some of the new physics that iRacing does come out with from time to time. Kind of like in the physical racing world, we always liken it to a new rules package, because essentially that's what it is for these drivers that they're trying to figure out. And as you said, starting 6th tonight, he should be in pretty good shape. Now, you look down the starting order a little bit, and one of the big things that comes out and jumps out at me, a guy that's been so good all year long, a Nick Ottinger, he's way down, mired in 25th spot, Joe. Is this the racetrack that you want that to happen, or do we think this is a racetrack now with this new car and new tire, essentially, for the first time in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, that maybe he can drive through the field over the course of 250 miles?
Ottinger has had a very up and down season. Last season, he won all of 6 races. He was one of the dominant drivers out there on the field. This year, he has not had that hot start that he wanted. Remember, last year he won his races in multiples of 2. He was contender at Texas, didn't quite get the job done, as Kevin King won there 1 month ago. Richmond, where Nick Ottinger won last year, that race ended up getting wiped off the schedule entirely. So he's not there so that race wasn't even there for him to win anymore. So tonight at Pocono, he's got to figure out what he can do here to try to get back in victory lane. I know he gets close. He's been close. He wants to get up there, and I think if he can really try to figure out this track that has not been friendly to him, he might have an opportunity. We'll see if the new tire package, if the new car build is going to be generous to him tonight.
Man, it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out, mainly because Pocono is a very different animal. It's a racetrack that's a hybrid of, it's supposed to be a hybrid of Indianapolis, Trenton, and the Milwaukee Mile, which is a really, really unique combination. And that's one thing that makes this triangle so tricky, are the three very different corners and, of course, three different length straightaways. The other thing sometimes that can make things tricky is your competition. But one of the guys they're not going to have to contend with this week is defending series champion Tyler Hudson. Hudson, after his actions at Texas 4 weeks ago now, which seems like it was just last week, he has been suspended for one race from this series. The official cause, we were told, was for causing an avoidable accident after or within the 5-lap window after a yellow flag. But I think those of us that watched that race know there was probably a little bit more to that than what was said officially in the iRacing side of things. He and Nick Ottinger got into it a couple of times that night, and it didn't bode well for either one of them. Now, Tyler was 8th in points coming into tonight. Obviously, that is going to have to be his drop race, so that means Tyler is going to have to dig out of a hole. But you look at the rest of the guys in the points, Joe, and we've got some that are trying to pull away from the field a little bit. Kenny Humpy, Brandon Cattell, Kevin King in the top three, and from King on back to really the 15th, it's only 20 points. So we could still see a lot of movers and shakers here in event number 5.
There's a lot of things we could see as this race continues. I'm really interested to see the resurgence of Kevin King running the Brad Keselowski racing cars. He'll be in the Cooper Standard Ford Fusion tonight. Manufacturer jump to match the manufacturer of this Brad Keselowski racing trucks. Kevin King had a great win 2 or 4 weeks ago, 1 month ago, exactly, in that Cooper Standard Ford Fusion. I wouldn't surprise me if he has a good run tonight as well here at the Tricky Triangle. He jumped 11 spots from 4 weeks ago. He jumped 11 spots as a result of that win. Now only 15 points behind Kenny Humpy. And Kevin King, he is in striking distance. He is in DMP form, if I dare say so.
I think you're right. This could be a season that could be a turnaround for Kevin King. I mean, yes, we're still early in the year. We're only a quarter of the way into the season, but that new partnership with Brad Keselowski Racing and in Kevin King's case, Cooper Standard coming on board, added a little bit of something to that group, whatever it happened to be. I'm not sure, but Kevin's been good the past couple seasons, just hasn't been great, hasn't been real stand out, but after the last couple of weeks here in the Peak Antifreeze series, he really, really has started to shine. Now, Texas, might have been a little bit of luck, but you know what, Joe? Luck is preparation meeting opportunity. Kevin King was prepared. He had the car in the top 5. The opportunity came to pass 2 or 3 cars at once while he was there. He did it, and the caution came out. So you can call it lucky all you want, but guess what? At the end of the season, we don't care about how. We care about how many. Kevin King's got 1 on the board, and with the day or the simulated day we have here at Pocono, Joe, he might be in pretty good shape as well.
100 laps around the Tricky Triangle here at Pocono Raceway will be a mostly cloudy night around the 2.5 mile complete circuit. 75 degrees out here on the track. Winds coming out of the west at 9 miles per hour. Relatively muggy day here. Not terribly muggy. Relative humidity of only about 54%. So should make a great race for racing out here tonight as we get ready to go green flag racing around Pocono Raceway.
Of course, you couldn't come to Pocono, it seems like, without some sort of weather being, I don't want to say an issue, but a story. The good thing about the Pocono Mountains, it's always very cool, and even in the middle of summer, it's a very nice place to come. But when it comes to racing, as far as the weather goes, sometimes that means it can be a little bit tricky. So the good news is it's not going to be super hot and super crazy. It's going to be fairly normal as far as the weather goes. But I think the big thing you're going to have to worry about is that wind, Joe. When you're always in the mountains, sometimes if that wind begins to shift, it can become an issue. But it seems like that wind, at least during practice so far, has been pretty calm and pretty predictable.
They call the wind Mariah here in the Pocono Mountains, and and that might be a big effect as these guys try to navigate this very unique little track here they've got. I say little relatively, 2.5 miles. It's just as big as a Talladega, just as big as a Daytona. So nothing really to sneeze at here at Pocono Raceway. Michael Conti on top of the pole tonight in that number 5 machine. We were told he's only going to run a part-time schedule, but he's looking like a full-time driver in that Abuto Gaming Cockpits Chevrolet. He's not only got the fastest time in qualifying tonight, he's also the fastest in practice. Michael Conti looking like he's got something to prove tonight.
And I think he certainly does, Joe. He's had some good runs so far this season, just hasn't quite had the luck to go along with it. And you look at the qualifying times, he's Schoenberg and Kenny Humpy, the top 3. They've got nearly a tenth to a tenth and a half on the guys behind them. Is that indicative of a dominant race car? It's hard to really say. We're only moments away, though, from gridding cars on the front straightaway. We're going to take a quick break, get a word in from a couple of our sponsors here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. We'll be right back with the starting lineup for tonight's 250-miler at Pocono.
This is where it gets difficult. This is where your name's on the line, everything's on the line. You get that one chance to go out there and put down your best performance with the most amount of pressure.
You got to take this race car, this whole new group of people, go to the racetrack, somehow impress them, and oh, by the way, you got to do it now. It's now or never.
The first thing that went through my mind was like, no way. Just be real important to try to figure out how to keep the tires under him and run a smart 150 laps.
They might bump him around a little bit, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Everybody should enter next year's contest because you never know what could happen, man. You can come out here and run top 5 in your first K&N West race. So I'm so psyched right now. This is incredible.
Welcome back to Pocono Raceway Field. Gridding on the front straightaway of this 2.5-mile monster of a racetrack. Let's take you through tonight's starting lineup for the 250-mile NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series event. On the pole, the number 5 machine, Michael Conti, into his outside. It's the double nickel from California, Brian Schoenberg.
Points leader Kenny Humpy in the 58 machine will start position number 3 tonight. On the outside of him, the 11 of Brad Davies starts 4th.
Thomas Lewandowski rolls off in position number 5, and two-time series champion Ray Alfala starts 6th.
Danny Hansen will roll off on the inside of row number 4 in the 32 machine. On the outside of him, it's the number 1, the draw-tight Ford of Richard Doucette.
Joey Brown, the driver from Oklahoma, starts the inside of row number 5, and Trey Adson, the South Carolinian, rolls 10th.
Texas winner Kevin King rolls off position number 11 in the 29 machine. Chad Lawton in the 26 rolls off 12th.
Robert Hall in the 30 and Stephen Gilbert in the 37. They'll make up row number 7.
Row number 8 belongs to the 33 Ford of Brian Blackford. On the outside of him, the 37 Ford Racing Machine of Stephen Gilbert.
Byron Daly starts 17th in his number 93 machine, and Justin Bolton, the Best Western car, starts 18th.
19th belongs to the 19 of Mitchell Hunt. On the outside of him, on the outside of row number 10, will be the 54 of Brandon Bowie.
Chris Overland deeper in the field, and he's like to be here recently. He's 21st, and Matt Boos in the 34 is 22nd.
The Plan B sales machine of Brian Day starts 23rd. Brandon Hawk, 24th. Nick Ottinger rolls off 25th. Adam Gillen will be 26th. Josh Lawton, Rob Ackley, Michael Johnson, Tyler Laughlin will round off the top 30.
You'll get it out there, Joe. Josh Berry, the junior motorsports driver, 31st. Brandon Hoff in 32nd. Brandon Cattell, 33rd, Landon Harrison, 34th, and Kwame Ajay, the final car to take a qualifying time, Joe, leaving 6 drivers, essentially with a provisional tonight.
Those are the 3 of Brandon Schmidt, the 17 of Justin Trombley, the 82 of Alex Warren, the 13 of Brad Mayhart, the 69 of Peter Bennett, and the 41 of Jake Sturgis. 41 drivers taking the field tonight at Pocono, and they will all be led to the green flag by the number 5 of Michael Connie.
So Michael Connie going to get ready to bring him off of turn number 3. What turn 4 here at Pocono? I'm sure we'll say that a few times before the night is over with. 41 cars strong. Race number 5 of the 2014 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series is green. Michael Connie going to get the break. He's on the jump as they race towards turn number 1. Here comes Schoenberg falling in line, Humpy, Davies, and all. Single file for the top 5. They're fanning out behind them. Trouble in turn 1, Joe.
Trouble already early here in the race. It looks like it's going to be the number 9 machine involved in that one. Heavy smoke pouring out of the 6 of Trey Eidson. It looked like a 9 going backwards out there. The 6th machine of Trey Eidson. Smoke heavy pouring out of that machine. Eidson's night could be done before it even begins. And the number 12 of Joey Brown could also be in a little bit of trouble as well.
Joe, how that was only a single car incident, I will never know, and I'm pretty sure the drivers in this race do not know. Eidson got turned literally in front of the field, bounced off the outside safer barrier back into traffic, facing traffic for that matter. There were a few close calls, but that motivated eyewear machine somehow only involved by himself, aside from the help from Joey Brown. But, wow, that could have been really, really large on the start of the race. Tough break for Trey Eidson. He had a solid run at Texas. I know he was looking to build on that, but it looks like the only thing they'll be building is a new race car after this one.
Looking back at that incident, it looks like the 12 of Joey Brown had a bad start. It looks like he almost spun the tires when the green flag came out. The 29 of Kevin King immediately got up on him and around him, putting the 12 in that chili dog hole 3 wide down the front stretch. The 12 ended up driving it in too hard, trying to get around the both of them. That forced him to get right to the 6 of Trey Eidson. And Eidson, smoke, heavy damage coming out of that machine. I think you're right. The only thing they're going to be building tonight is a brand new car from what could have been a very strong run for the team of Trey Eidson. Eidson currently sitting 13th in points, 30 points behind your leader. That's going to drop as he will probably finish around 41st tonight.
I don't think it's a finishing around. I think he probably is going to finish 41st tonight, barring some really horrific luck on the part of the rest of the field. Again, not the start that Trey Eidson wanted, and really not the start I don't think Joey Brown wanted, Joe. You know, you kind of get that in your system when you go off into turn 1 and you get into an incident. It doesn't bode well for you as a driver. You start to get a little nervous. You get a little butterfly almost in your stomach. And, you know, he's got to be a little bit worried about maybe the next couple of starts and the next time in turn 1. That's never a good thing when a driver has doubt in the back of their mind.
It's never a good thing at all. You do not want to have that doubt. It will hang on to you like a monkey on your back, and that is one monkey you want to do everything you can to shake. Once that doubt gets in your head, it starts to mess with you. You start to second guess everything you see on the track. You start to second guess yourself, the moves you're making, how fast you're going, when you need to pit stop, and that's when you start making problems for yourself on track, and that you just can't afford that. You cannot afford that when you're in the big leagues. That second guessing could ultimately cost you $10,000 later on down the line.
It really could. And speaking of second guessing, if you're trying to adjust your screen, do not second guess yourself, because yes, Joe, for the first time ever in a NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series race, we have got 3 separate manufacturers represented. We've got the Ford Fusion, the NASCAR Gen 6 Chevy SS, and the Toyota Camry also represented in the field here tonight. And really a number of drivers choosing to go with the Toyota nameplate. Certainly always good to see new manufacturers becoming involved as partners of iRacing. Just adds to some of that realism. And speaking of the realism, we even have onboard cameras. Here's Byron Daly trying to wheel his number 93 around the racetrack, Joe. And that's really the cool part, is how real it does get inside one of these simulated race cars.
It gets very real in a hurry. It gets very quick in a hurry for these guys. And the level of reality just continues to grow season after season with these cars. iRacing continuing to build, iRacing continuing to improve upon these cars year after year, continuing to improve upon the tire model. This is really the closest you can get to climbing into one of these 700 horse, 800 horsepower machines without actually leaving the comfort of your own home.
And really, Joe, it's about as real as you can get as far as the racing goes, shy of buying yourself a race car to go out and run, say, the NASCAR Wheel and All-American Series.
And it's a whole lot less expensive, too.
Yeah, it's a little bit, well, I disagree, because some of these guys have spent some major cash on their computers and their operating systems and their sets, but here's the good part. Just like real racing, or I should say physical world racing, because you are really racing in iRacing. You might not have a physical car around you or a physical roll cage, but you're actually racing. When you go out to the physical world, it might take you a few $1,000s to go get you a car and some safety equipment and everything else, but you can spend that on a computer, but the good news is you don't have to. You can get up to speed with an inexpensive wheel from your local electronics retailer or online, and of course, a computer that meets the minimum specs, and of course, the iRacing subscription. Really, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get into a virtual race car at iRacing, and that's the best part about it. So many times we've seen iRacing launch the careers of physical world racers. They've gotten the bug when they've been iRacing. They thought, that was so cool, I want to just, I'll piddle around with what they considered a video game at the time. They realized it was a true ultimate sim, and they said, you know what? This is awesome. They went out and bought themselves a race car, and now they're not only iRacers, but they're at their local track, be it a road course or short track, wherever, each and every week.
Isn't that funny how that works, how art reflects life so very well, and it certainly works for here in iRacing. Be sure, if you're not signed up yet, go to iRacing.com, get yourself signed up. They got great specials running now for brand new members. iRacing.com, the closest you can get to a car without actually getting into a car. They're gonna restart them now this time around. Pace car should be coming off this time by in turn number 3. Michael Connie, Brian Schoenberg still on the front row. Kenny Humpy, Brad Davies right behind them. Lights are off. Pace car's out. Green flag flies. It's a bad start for the 16, but the 5 machine gets back in front of this field. Connie, Schoenberg, Humpy, all single file, and look who's on the hunt. The number 2 of Ray Alfalla in there. 3 wide now around Joey Brown once again.
Joey Brown actually was not the one with the bad start this time. It was Thomas Lewandowski. Looked like he might have spun the tires on the start, and he's starting to pay for it. He's stuck on the top side of the racetrack as they race down the Long Pond straightaway and look further up close to the front. Here comes Ray Alfalla, looking for that 4th spot in turn number 2. He's on the inside underneath the Brad Davies. They'll race side by side now off of turn 2. And looking is Danny Hansen. He thought about making it 3 wide. Thought better of it. He'll fall back in line, or at least 2 wide. He'll try to work the bottom. Ray Alfalla and Joey Brown, they're going to work the grip strip off turn number 3.
Trying that grip strip, trying to make it work as hard as they can off of turn number 3. Alfalla has the advantage. It's a drag race down the front stretch. Alfalla has it, but he will drop from 4th to 5th, yielding that to Brad Davies. Looks like we might have a car smoking on the grid. We'll just see more into that as Alfalla now fights Danny Hansen off for that 5th position in the Blue Ghost, he was calling it earlier.
Riding on board now with Danny Hansen in the number 32 machine. And one of the things we have to keep an eye on here, Joe, some drivers choosing to shift, others choosing not to shift in their setups, depending on maybe what fuel mileage they're looking to obtain, or maybe to try to keep an ace in the hole. Some drivers don't even go shifting until late in the race to have that added little bit, Joe. And you know what? I don't blame them. You better not show your entire hand until things are getting close to over with. Oh, hello, Danny Hansen. Joe, did you see that? He was plugged sideways middle of turn 3. That's going to open the door now for Chad Lawton and Joey Brown. Lawton to the inside of Hansen as they race towards turn 1.
That's one of the best parts of racing, being able to take advantage out of the field. And now the 80 machine coming off pit road. I don't know what Cattell was doing, but he almost caught the 12 of Joey Brown and the 26 of Chad Lawton as they try to get around that 32 machine of Danny Hansen. Hansen now back up to speed. He's starting to fight off the 26 and 12, but look who's behind him. The number 1 gets to the 12. The number 1 spins the 12. 2 cars now spinning now. The 1, the 12, the 29 gets into both those cars. Kevin King into both of them. Looks like Brian Day might be involved in that one. No, check out Mitchell Hunt involved. Brandon Cattell's now on his roof. Melee
was
all
large.
over the track of the field. 80's now upside down. 80 upside down in the grass. What a bizarre incident. That was critical to this race.
That was just large, Joe. That's about the only thing you can say about it, and it's really, it seems like a mindset here at Pocono for whatever reason. Early in these races we've seen the past couple of seasons now, things get a little carried away at the beginning of the race, and you see drivers trying to block and trying to maybe jockey for position. And you know, Joey Brown, yeah, did Rich Doucette have a position on him? Maybe. Joey Brown maybe shouldn't have cut down on him, but you know what? It's racing, and that's why these things happen. You take out two of the Brad Keselowski associated cars, Kevin King, one of them, Mitchell Hunt, caught a piece of it as well. Excuse me, check that, Mitchell Hunt in the number 19. Brandon Cattell, as you documented on his lid. Really 5, 6 plus cars, all a piece of this, and give a call to Robert Hall. Somehow, Joe, Robert Hall ended up through the grass, over the rumble strips, on the access road. He got on the binders very quickly. He was bypassed by a couple of others, but somehow was able to get through the wreck. So good job on the 30 machine of Robert Hall to be able to do that. But man, what chaos we have seen here in the opening 10 laps of this one, Joe.
And it's going to make for a very, very long race, 100 laps around this super speedway length track. 5 cars involved in that incident, including the 12 of Joey Brown, the 80 of Brandon Cattell, the last month's winner, the 29 of Kevin King, the 1 machine of Richard Doucette, and the 19 of Mitchell Hunt, all getting a piece of it. Of those drivers, we know that the 80 of Cattell and the 12 of Brown are pretty much done for tonight. They have heavy front-end damage on the 29 of Kevin King, so that renaissance we were talking about might be a little ways coming for the 29 of Kevin King. Also front and rear-end damage on the 1 of Richard Doucette. We were talking about how strong that relationship was with Brad Keselowski Racing, and how those guys were proud to run those numbers out there, those colors out there, and the sponsors for BKR. But that is not the look they wanted for the sponsors tonight. That's not the look they want for Brad.
Yeah, that's not exactly what they were looking for by any means, Joe. Pit stops now for pretty much the entire field. A few drivers staying out on the racetrack, but everybody from about, looks like 5th, 6th on back coming down pit road. And PJ Sturgis going to win the race off the pit lane. Looks like 2 tires for him. Ray Alfala is going to come out in 2nd. After that, it is Robert Hall, Brian Blackford, Justin Bolton, and a host of others. And they've mixed it up all through the running order. I see Josh Berry out there, one of the top 10 cars off of pit road. Looks like maybe 2 tires for the Speed Co machine. So, well, it looks like maybe pit strategy coming into play here, Joe. And I don't blame them. Less than 10 laps into the race, might as well take 2 tires and see what it does for you here in the early stages.
Well, this is where you start playing the race backwards. This is where you start figuring out how to run the race backwards there and figure out what you need to do in order to make sure your stuff lasts the longest among this group. If you're able to play it backwards and almost make it so you don't have to stop at the very end when everyone else does, those 2 tires, that extra fuel you take now, might be the key decider between winning and losing, Tony.
Very well could be, and one of the keys to deciding things for us is who pays the bills. We're going to get a quick word in from some of our sponsors. We'll be right back. You're watching the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series live here on iRacing Live.
This is where it gets difficult. This is where your name's on the line, everything's on the line. You get that one chance to go out there and put down your best performance with the most amount of pressure.
You got to take this race car, this whole new group of people, go to the racetrack, somehow impress them, and oh, by the way, you got to do it now. It's now or never.
First thing that went through my mind was like, no way.
Just be real important to try to figure out how to keep the tires under him and run a smart 150 laps.
They might bump him around a little bit, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Everybody should enter next year's contest because you never know what could happen, man. You can come out here and run top 5 in your first K&N West race. So I'm so psyched right now. This is incredible.
What's inside Peak Antifreeze? 65 years of experience in hot and cold protection. From an independent, family-owned business that's never been afraid to give you exactly what's right for your engine and your wallet. Peak. Run true.
Welcome back to Pocono, Pennsylvania, where Michael Conti is still the leader after pit stops. He did not come down pit road. In fact, it looks like 11 cars, Joe, stayed out on the racetrack, Michael Johnson being the last of those, but it was Sturgis, Alfala, Hall, and Blackford now going to make 11 through 15. Justin Bolton, Thomas Lewandowski, Chris Overland, Adam Gillen, and Stephen Gilbert going to make up the rest of the top 20. And so on down through the running order. Also glad to welcome back, hey, this guy, Tim Terry. Glad you could finally find your way through the, well, I don't know, from the Great White North to Pocono, whichever the case might be. But glad you could join us here tonight.
Yeah, Tony, this is going to be an exciting race. We've seen a couple of cautions so far this evening, but Pocono always delivers some great racing, always delivers usually some green flag racing near the end of these races, some fuel mileage. The pro race that they ran here in the off-season, these NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, it came down to a final lap restart, or final couple of laps restart, I should say, came down to the LRM guys saving a little bit of fuel. So I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Chris Overland or Jake Sturgis or somebody tonight, maybe somebody at the back of the field, does that little fuel strategy thing. And Joe, I know you've been calculating numbers all night long. I think once we hit the 20 lap to go mark, 10 lap to go mark, I think this thing's going to get exciting.
Oh, this is going to be crazy when we get to that point. It's really going to be a matter of the haves versus have-nots and who feels like rolling the dice late here at Pocono Raceway. 6 now back in the infield. Trey Eidson, he wrecked early, and I believe he is done for the night now on that 6 machine. He's currently in the grass, and I believe they're going to go ahead and pull it off beside the or behind the wall, and that will be the end of it for them. Double filing up one more time to go back to green flag racing. Connie, Schoenberg, Humpy, Davies, Hansen, your top 5. Nick Ottinger, we were talking about him getting on the hunt early tonight. He's now in position 8.
He's worked his way up very, very, well, I shouldn't say easily. I think pretty much in the case of Nick Ottinger, it's a matter of staying on the racetrack under this caution. It's going to be fun to see whether 2 tires, no tires, or 4 tires has any sort of effect. Remember, Tim, this is the very first race we've seen here on PSR TV with this brand new tire model for the NASCAR Gen 6 cars. It might be something completely different. It might be what we expect, or it could be some combination of the two. We're about ready to find out how these different pit strategies do, in fact, play out here at Pocono.
Yeah, I think if it comes down to it, if these guys need fuel, they're going to take fuel over tires. Tires mean something, Tony, but not as much as they did in the past build. Pace car going to peel off here. Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg in control. Green flag flies, and we're back underway. Jay Show leading the field.
Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg. Brian Schoenberg may not be in second for a whole lot longer. Here comes Kenny Humpy, the remaining Brad car not without damage out there. He's going to try to fight in second for that position.
Down the long pond straightaway, they continue, and it is Humpy trying to work his way forward. Remember, he is the point leader coming into Pocono after the first 4 events. He's got a 10-point lead on the rest of the field. Brian Schoenberg right there in second. Good run for him as well. Started second, now still running in the second spot. Behind him, though, here comes Brad Davies trying to make some time up, and Danny Hansen back there as well. Seems like at least early in these runs, Tim, not a huge advantage up top on that grip strip, although there is one. But if your car is handling right, you might be able to make a little bit of time up on the bottom in turn 3.
Every little bit of time counts here, especially at Pocono, as the top 5 get single file for the time being. Kenny Humpy showed the nose on Brian Schoenberg at a turn 3 the last time by. Could not make the move. He gets back to position number 3, falls into line, and we continue on. And actually the top 10 or so are single file right now. You look back to about 12th or 13th place, I believe, is the first battle. 47 Chris Overland and 36 Justin Bolton. They're side by side. Everybody in front of them pretty much status quo.
Justin Bolton doing everything he can on that outside lane to hold on to position. He's not going to do it, though, as he continues to drop through the field. Chris Overland, the 47, the HDRN machine, gets around him. Now here comes the 53 of Brandon Houck. He wants to try to get around, and look who's behind them. The 8 of Adam Gillen, biding his time, waiting for the 36 to fall out of line. It might be sooner rather than later, as the 36 of Bolton has a little bit of trouble navigating these turns.
So Justin Bolton trying to figure his way out around the Pocono Raceway. Of note, Justin Bolton, well, maybe not so much him, but some of his teammates in the physical racing world we talked about earlier, they've really torn some stuff up over at Lee Falk Racing for the NASCAR Wheel and All-American Series. Justin Bolton hoping that maybe he can reverse that trend here tonight. He got torn up at Texas 4 weeks ago, and hoping at least he can finish this race at Pocono, maybe reverse the way things have been going for he and his teammates. As you ride on board now with Nick Ottinger, working the bottom off turn number 3, trying to find a way by Byron Daly in that intelligence board. Hasn't gotten the job done yet. And does that 05 car look a little bit different to you, Mr. Terry? I must say, it looks pretty sharp with that new feature.
Yeah, it does look pretty sharp. The 05 car always looks good when it comes to the virtual racetrack, and right now looking at the new Intelligence number 93 of Byron Daly to pick up another spot. And we mentioned those Toyota Camrys that are out here this evening, Tony. It's great to see the Toyota model in the Gen 6 car, and Nick's trying to put it to the front. Joe, you remember back when Toyota came in to the Sprint Cup Series, that first win everybody seemed to be chasing? I believe off the top of my head it was Kyle Busch that won the first race for Toyota in the Sprint Cup Series. Ottinger trying to pull a Busch and win the first race in this series as he looks underneath the 93 of Byron Daly. Shows him the nose, not going to happen there, but I believe we have a battle brewing up front.
Battle was brewing up front. Keyword there being was. Schoenberg, Humpy, they continue to try to run out there, and Humpy almost made the pass, but didn't make it work. Let's go ahead and go now back to position number 3 with 32 of Danny Hansen and 11 of Brad Davies. You're riding on the bumper of Bennett, though, I believe, as you watch him make a couple passes around through the track. Let's go back up to now the 3rd position as 11 of Brad Davies, 4th position as 11 of Brad Davies has caught up with a 32 of Danny Hansen, and that time by without any effort. The 11 of Brad Davies outs the number 32 of Danny Hansen. We've got now a new guy in position number 4, but Hinkinson not happy about it. He is all over the back bumper of that 11 machine trying to get caught up. Now Chad Lawton wants a piece of the mix as well.
So Chad Lawton trying to get in the middle of that party, and really that's become a 3-car mini pack, if you will. The top driver, Michael Conti, he hasn't checked out, but he's trying to. He's got about 3/4 of a second, or about 10 to 12 car lengths over Brian Schoenberg and Kenny Humpy. It's a second back to Brad Davies, who just got by Danny Hansen, and now it appears Chad Lawton might have a run off turn number 1 down the Long Pond straightaway to do the exact same thing. Not going to work for him this time. A little bit further back in 11th, Ray Alfalla making his way forward. He gets by Peter Bennett. He brings PJ Sturgis with him as well. So it looks like those drivers that took no tires, they're faring pretty well, Tim. At least it seems that maybe later in the race, no tires could be a very viable option if you're faced with a short run.
And as they go down the front straightaway, it's going to be the 58 of Humpy looking at Schoenberg for position number 2. I don't think he's going to get it into corner number 1. But yeah, you mentioned it, Tony. These tires don't fall off as much compared to what we had in the last build, and you're going to see a lot of that when it comes down to strategy. If you can take just fuel instead of taking fuel and 2 tires, or fuel and 4 tires, these guys are going to take just the fuel instead of taking the tires because they don't fall off as much compared to what they had before, even over this 100-lap race at Pocono. That battle for second continues to brew. Joe, the 58, looking at the 55 for position number 2. He continues to get the run in 3, but just can't seem to get it. We'll try it again here in corner number 3. 58 under the 55 for the spot.
He is working as hard as he can. The 55 working the grip strip on the high side, though. And now you see why the 58 can't make the move. He can't pitch it into the turn. He gets loose coming off the turn, and that loses him a lot of speed, and he's forced to wind up right back behind the 55 of Schoenberg one more time and try to build his way up around the track. Humpy's got some position. He knows how to do this. He just can't get the car to cooperate with him. But Kenny Humpy now runs alone. Both of his teammates, Kevin King, Richard Doucette, they are out of the race.
So looking a little bit further back in the field from the top 5 or so, not much further back, but this battle from about 7th on back. Byron Daly leads that group. It is him, Nick Ottinger, Tyler Laughlin, Ray Alfalla, PJ Sturgis, all right there. And look, here goes Nick Ottinger again, playing the role of carpfish here tonight, working the bottom in turn number 3. But it appears that that grip strip that they paved here at Pocono a couple of years ago, it's too much to try to battle on the bottom unless you have a very superior race car, Tim. And it looks like as much as Ottinger tries, just cannot get by Daly using the bottom of the racetrack in turn 3. Maybe he'll try to set him up somewhere else. Look at him now. Backed up turn number 1. Alfalla about got into his back bumper, and if he didn't, I'd be very surprised. It appears Ottinger trying to do everything he can to set up Byron Daly. But Byron's got to fight too, because now, if he gets past, well, that could be big trouble. He might have 4 or 5 cars go by him. Meanwhile, up to second as well, looks like Schoenberg and Humpy have swapped spots, as Humpy now up to position number 2.
Here goes Ottinger again underneath the 93 of Byron Daly, and you hit the nail on the head, Tony. The 05 tries to get to the inside of the 93 at corner number 3. As you look at the 2 of Ray Alfalla as well, trying to get into this battle, but that inside, you can't make that move off corner number 3, at least in this juncture of the race. You can't get there. The 2 does make the move on the outside, though, and takes the spot away from Nick Ottinger. We'll see how long it takes for him to dispose of his Slip Angle Motorsports teammate in the 93, Byron Daly. But we saw it for that battle for second, Joe, with Kenny Humpy and Brian Schoenberg. Humpy tried in 3 numerous laps to get past the 55, could not do it. He made the move in corner number 1 and 2. He picked up the spot, and now he moves to position number 2. So we'll see if Ray Alfalla can do anything here with the 93 of Byron Daly, but keep in mind, they're teammates. I'm not sure what the plan is there. I'm sure they're speaking to each other, though.
Of course, they're communicating to each other. That's without a doubt. But what I'm really curious to see here is what those 2 drivers are going to do as they continue to return laps here. We're now a 5th of the way done with this race. Only 80 laps to go, 79 when they hit the start-finish line. And I've got a feeling Daly and Ray Alfalla might work together here to try. No, it's going to be Ray Alfalla getting a position on Byron Daly that time by. You watch on the webcam there, Byron Daly, as he lets Ray Alfalla by him. He's one of our webcam drivers in here tonight. And it looks like that was kind of a planned move. It was a planned move to let the 2 around anyways, but not the 05 of Nick Ottinger. Ottinger in that Toyota trying to inch his way up towards a win here. Alfalla, though, he's going to be my guy to beat and be my guy to watch. Remember, last year he went pole to pole here, finished all 100 laps in position number 1.
And that's where he's going to try to end up again at the conclusion of tonight. So far, he might have a decent shot at it, but not quite where he wants to be yet. We talked earlier about the 05 car and how that car looks a little different, Tim. And aside from the Toyota on there, it's, well, the wheels a little bit different. You may have noticed that a lot of these cars now, these brand new paintable wheels on these race cars. Doesn't seem like a big deal. So we got trouble on the speedway. Caution is out. And it looks like Mitchell Hunt is involved in the number 19 machine. That's off of off the Long Pond straightaway. The number 19 machine goes into the grass and up into the outside wall. I'm not sure if that's exactly what brought the caution, but it appears either him or Kwame Ajay, Tim, who went sliding off turn number 3, could also be cause for the yellow. A couple of incidents simultaneously that have brought out the yellow flag, it appears.
Yeah, the yellow flag, I believe, was for the 43 off for number 3, getting a little bit loose and sliding it down onto pit road. And usually the caution would not fly for the car spinning onto pit road, but I think he was on the racetrack long enough and sliding long enough for the sim to trigger the caution flag. So tough break for Kwame. At this point, had a great pro season, and now moving up into this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, looking to make something happen here. And Mitchell Hunt's had a tough season as well. You could say, Joe, that he hasn't got real lucky this season yet.
No, not particularly out there. Mitchell Hunt, the other half of that incident out there in the RealLucky.com machine, he just hits the grass. Not sure if the suspension gave out or what gave out in the number 19 machine, but he just dove it into the grass, ends up back on track. Heavy contact with the safer barrier in turn number 2, and Mitchell Hunt, that might end his night. He has just had a lot of bad luck here on the track, and you know, with every turn, he is hoping that that will improve, that he'll have another shot at it. I'm afraid, though, he's going to have to pack it up tonight and hope for another shot in 2 more weeks.
Very tough break for the Mooresville, North Carolina driver, Mitchell Hunt. Again, another driver that kind of got caught up very, very early in an incident over in turn number 2, and I think his day or his night, whichever you want to call it, has kind of gone downhill from there. Just has not been a good night for Mitchell Hunt. So completing lap 24 this time by, pretty sure we're going to see Michael Conti, Kenny Humpy, Brian Schoenberg and company all on pit road. But now the question is, if you came to pit road on that lap number 9 stop, do you come back down pit road this time, Tim, to get back on sequence, or do you try to stay off sequence and maybe use that to your advantage? It looks like we're about ready to find out.
I think you come down and get fuel, especially if this race goes a little bit green. We saw a little glimpse of a green flag run there, and everybody, I believe, is coming down to the attention of their crew, especially if we do get some green flag laps in the middle to late portions of this race, Joe. You're going to want to be on sequence with everybody else, and right now, with a quarter of the race nearly through here, starting lap number 25, you definitely want to come down and pack that thing full of fuel.
Absolutely. Connie will do just that as he's going to pull into pit stall number 1. The 55 of Schoenberg behind him. The 5 overshoots his stall, and that's going to cost him some time. Wheels up on the 55, wheels up on the 58. It will be a 4-tire stop for everybody up in that first group. Schoenberg, Humpy, Davies. Humpy's the first one down and away. Humpy wins the race off pit road. It looks like Schoenberg's second, Chad Lawton third, and it looks like the 5 of Michael Conti fourth, and Schoenberg almost bought the farm out there.
Looks like the green cone has been sacrificed on pit road. Tough break for the green cone. We'll have to get his or her replacement out sooner or later, but very scared there for a moment that Brian Schoenberg might end up in the inside wall there, Tim. He got on the gas, dropped the clutch, and that thing just about went straight left into the Armco. I'd be very surprised if there's not damage to the left front fender of Brian Schoenberg, because he made it very, very close there on the pit lane trying to get by Michael Conti.
Yeah, one of those things, trying to get off the road and making sure that you can pick up any position that you can. And I do believe we are going to step away here and pay some more of those bills. We're going to get a drink, refill your glass, because I hear a green flag run coming. I can just feel it. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
What's inside Peak Antifreeze? 65 years of experience in hot and cold protection. From an independent, family-owned business that's never been afraid to give you exactly what's right for your engine and your wallet. Peak. Run true.
Welcome back to Pocono Raceway, where the field is still circulating under this yellow flag, and it appears that Kenny Humpy, for the, it's hard to believe, the first time tonight, going to be leading the field down to the green flag. And wouldn't surprise me if maybe Kenny Humpy has a little bit left in the tank. He's kind of known for doing just a little bit of that, playing around up front, but not showing us everything that he has, Tim.
And, you know, looking at the point standings, and it's early to look at the standings, but with that one drop factored in, with the one race that we lost in there also being used as a drop, you kind of got to look at that. Yes, Kenny Humpy comes into this race with a 10-point lead. Then you have Brandon Cattell. Well, Brandon's 41st right now. Kevin King, it's 38th right now. The 41 of Jake Sturgis, it's 34th right now. The next person in line is Chad Lawton, and Lawton's been running well this evening. He runs in position number 4, but he's 18 points behind the 58 coming into this evening. If Kenny Humpy ends up coming away with the win in this race, or ends up coming away with a decent finish in this race, Joe, it's going to help him even elevate that point lead just a little bit more heading into 2 weeks' time at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. So there's a lot to watch here as we get ready to go racing next time by. We'll complete lap number 26 there. Kenny Humpy has a lot to gain from this race, albeit it is early in the season. We have seen drivers that have missed a race come back and contend for the title, but Kenny Humpy is looking pretty good right now.
Kenny Humpy, this is going to be the critical race for Kenny Humpy, I believe, and I'll tell you why, guys. After tonight's race, there are only 11 races left on the schedule. We're getting nearer and nearer to that halfway point, and remember that everything will cut off here very quick. Everything will cut off here for the last 4 races, where that drop will be factored in, and you don't get another drop after that, guys, creating a chase-like scenario here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Kenny Humpy needs to amass as many points as he can right now. He needs to amass all of those, as much of a lead as he can, going into that chase, because he cannot afford losing a race. He cannot afford dropping a race or getting wrecked out of a race during that chase period, guys. That is going to be the make or break for the season.
Yeah, I agree, Joe, and it's really cool to see that iRacing has done that, because it makes it easier for us to factor in things coming down to those last couple of races. Instead of worrying about drops and everything in a last-minute situation like we kind of had to last year at Homestead, things got kind of simpler this year, if you will, because of that. And I think it's a very good thing. But yes, you're right. It's going to add some intensity. It's going to ratchet things up, because guys then know where they're at. They're not playing a guessing game. They know precisely what they have to do to get that extra spot, to win a championship, to finish 5th, whatever the case might be, to achieve whatever goal it is they have for themselves and or their team before the end of this now 15 race season. Pace car is off, and very quickly, green flag is out. Brian Schoenberg fast on the button. It's Schoenberg going to lead the parade off turn number 1. Back for about 8th, 10th spot. They're 3 wide. Byron Daly, PJ Sturgis, and Ray Alfalla. They get settled down 2 abreast as they work through turn number 1.
Strap in, Overland in the middle, 57 up high. You got the 51 of Teloff down low as they go 3 wide. Down into corner number 2 this time, 51. 47 going to get it 2 wide. The 57 bows out on the outside. Oh boy, about mid-pack. They're trying to pick up every position that they can, about top 8 or 9 or so, Joe. Single file at this point as they go into corner number 3.
Able to make it go single file, and now it's going to be a battle once again. 57, 51 side by side, and now we might have a challenge for the lead. Kenny Humpy trying to get around the 55 of Brian Schoenberg, the double nickel that is going to go ahead and hold on to the lead. But Kenny Humpy he's digging, he's hunting right now. He wants to get that 58 back in position number 1 and see if he can't win himself in his 2nd race this season.
He wants it. There's no question about it. Whoa, hello, Byron Daly off turn number 1. Way down the racetrack. Looked like that car got out from underneath the him as he escaped the banking of turn number 1. Able to hold on to it. However, no harm, no foul. Behind him, Nick Ottinger now racing with, check that. Yeah, actually, I'll get on that in 2 seconds. Nick Ottinger and Chris Overland racing side by side as you ride on board with the number 58 machine of Kenny Humpy off turn number 3. Humpy making a bid for the top spot. Not good enough. Here comes Michael Conti looking to the inside. Tim, that number 5 machine has some speed. Had the run off turn number 3. It looks like he'll get the spot maybe in turn number 1.
Yeah, Conti looking to pick up the spot. Almost went up the racetrack into the 58 and is going to open the door for his teammate, the 32 of Danny Hansen. Hansen going to try to follow him through on the 58 of Humpy, and instead of Humpy going to the lead on Schoenberg, he's going to fall back to 4th, and it's going to be a J-Show 1, 2, 3 as they go into corner number 2, and Chad Lawton going to look on now from position number 5. Little loose there for the 32, and now the 58 goes underneath. Here comes the 26 as well. That was a very close call for the field, and look who's joined the party, Joe. Here comes Ray Alfalla.
Ray Alfalla back in the mix one more time. He's not going to go pole to pole here tonight, but I think he does at least want a podium and give himself a little bit of TV time. And what he's been going on Facebook, the Blue Ghost out there, that number 2 Ford out there. Ray Alfalla continuing to drive it as hard as he can. Currently sitting in position number 6, right behind Chad Lawton in the highest ranked Toyota on the track right now, that number 26 Viper machine. Back up front, it is Jay Show, front first and second. And I was about to say, before Danny Hansen lost to Jay Show, has just looked like the team to beat out here. They look so prepared. They look so confident in these cars. You'd almost think that they've been planning all month for this.
As you watch inside the box, there you see PJ Sturgis going to the inside of Nick Ottinger in turn number 3. But up front, again, almost side by side. Well, they were side by side for a moment until Schoenberg got the run off turn number 3. He'll now extend that lead to, 3-4 car lengths into turn number 1. And you said it, Joe. The Jay Show Motorsports Group looking very, very stout here at Pocono. And the good news is, if you've got a good race car here at Pocono, it usually bodes very well for you. Because this race, once it does get a green flag run, gets very strung out, and it's very hard to lose a lot of positions here, especially if you're good in the short run. And if I almost had to guess, Tim, I would think maybe you'd want to be a little bit better in the short run than the long run here because of that fact. Because it is harder to pass cars once they're strung out as opposed to bunched up close together.
5 going to dive it down in the 55 for the lead position. We'll see if he can get it this time. Turn 3 typically hasn't been the place to do it, as Kenny Humpy, lots of pressure to the 5 behind him for the second place spot. And you're right, Tony. I don't know the trends of these races, but I believe in the last few races we have had a caution flag and a restart within 10 laps to go in a couple of these races here at Pocono. So I'd like to have a short run car to that point. I'd like to have good fuel strategy until there, because usually we do have some green flag runs to that point. So I agree with you. I'd like to have some short run in my race car in order to get myself to the end, and I want some track position too. Here comes Conti for the lead, and I believe he's going to take it here. New leader, number 5.
The number 5 of Michael Conti, he will now take position number 1 away from his teammate. But look at Kenny Humpy. Look at him just digging down there underneath the 55 machine. Kenny Humpy, here he goes. He's looking for it, trying to get position number 2 over Brian Schoenberg. Schoenberg able to stave him off. And guys, this is where you're talking about the setup. Really coming to hurt Kenny Humpy right here. He's got a fast car. Nobody's denying the 58 looks great tonight. The problem is he just can't get that car to turn on that low line. He can't get it to get underneath. You can't get underneath that 55 machine. And until he can do that, Kenny Humpy is going to be continuing to run position number 3.
So Humpy essentially losing a couple of spots here over the last few laps. And during the course of all this shuffling, it's allowed Danny Hansen and Chad Lawton to close right in on this group. And the thing I've noticed the last couple of laps, Tim, watch Michael Conti. That car seems to be a little bit out of shape. Anytime he's, well, right there, look at him in turn number 3. That car is tail happy. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing over the course of a run here. Right now it appears to be fast, or at least fast enough, but one would have to wonder, I would think, will he burn off the right rear tire, which is so important to making sure you've got solid drive getting off the corners here at Pocono.
Yeah, he's straddling that fine line right now, trying to get that handling and trying to be fast to get these guys, or keep these guys behind him. The 55 of Brian Schoenberg trying to hold off the 58 of Kenny Humpy, and then you have Danny Hansen and Chad Lawton, your top 5. And Ray Alfalla's back there. It looks like he's fallen off the pace a little bit, though, of these front 5 as they work through corner number 2 and look towards corner number 3 this time by. So we'll have to see. It looks like Conti, though, extending the lead a little bit through 1 and 2. Humpy going to go to the inside here, seeing if he can do anything through corner number 3, gain a little bit of time as Chad Lawton looks a little bit racy back there, but he's got the same thing going on, Joe, that Conti does. He's a little bit loose out of 3.
As you're riding the roof camp of Kenny Humpy right now, still in position number 3. He's going to continue to do everything he can, but I've got a feeling adjustments are going to be in order for that Reese machine, that Reese Ford Fusion out there behind him. Danny Hansen 4th, and then there's Chad Lawton in 5th. Chad Lawton, right now, the fastest running Toyota on the field. We mentioned earlier before how great it is to now have all 3 manufacturers represented here in iRacing. I think Chad Lawton would like to be the first driver to take that brand new manufacturer to victory lane in their inaugural race. We almost saw it last year when the Ford Fusion joined the Gen 6 cars here in iRacing. May not happen tonight, but Chad Lawton is going to do everything he can to try to make it happen.
He is, Joe, and trying to work the race backwards. When everybody pitted about, what was it, lap 26, I believe it was, you're almost on the cusp of being able to make it the rest of the way on one more stop. I say almost because especially if you were at the back of the field, let's say, and came in on the one to go, that's an extra lap or two of fuel you might have as you see that battle for second with, or check that battle for fifth, Danny Hansen and Chad Lawton trying to get things sorted out. Brad Davies back there as well in the 7th spot, getting up to 6th ahead of Ray Alfala, but I almost have to wonder, Tim, if some of these drivers already are not on a fuel economy run, trying to make it a one more stop, hoping this race goes green the rest of the way. It might be tight, but I would not put it past a couple of these teams to try to do it.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some different strategies here as we continue on throughout this race. As you look at the 58 of Kenny Humphrey trying to make a move on Brian Schoenberg in the 55 car for position number 2-0 going into corner number 1. But we'll see if he puts any more pressure on those top two. And you look through this field, Joe, a lot of these guys are getting single file. There's not a whole lot of double wide. I believe there is a double wide back here around the 40 car who is a lap down. That's Josh Lawton. But there's no battle for position per se side by side within the top 10. I think the closest battle on the racetrack within the top 10, 15 is the battle for the lead right now.
Now you're starting to see guys do a little bit of conservation. This is where you guys start seeing guys play chess out here in these very powerful cars. This is where you start seeing them make different moves and make different strategies that allow them to maneuver later on in the race, that allow them to change how they want to run and ultimately control their own destiny on the field. Kenny Humphrey trying to do everything he can to control his destiny for position number 2, but still can't get around Schoenberg. Meanwhile, the rest of the field, pretty single file all the way through this field. Now they're playing conservation, now they're playing chess, and here is where the guys, we're going to see who's really got the mindset to win this race at Pocono.
And I think Joe might take a little bit different mindset, but yes, you're going to have to make sure that car, at least at this juncture, could be good on the long run. You look at somebody like a Michael Conti, it almost seems like he's playing with the field, just stretching it out far enough to hold on to the lead. And I think that car might be a little stronger than maybe what he's letting on. You look further back in the field at, say, a Nick Ottinger, let's say. He's 6 seconds off the lead in that 05 machine and really holding up a group of race cars right now. That car we know for a fact is tight. Oh, we've got trouble in the front of the, it looks like Kwame Ajay again on the front straightaway has issues, and that will bring out the caution flag once again. Tough break for Kwame Ajay. Turn 3, Tim, has not been his friend. This time, though, instead of spinning into the pit lane, he spins into the inside wall.
Yeah, that's a tough break for Kwame. We said it earlier, and we'll say it again, trying to turn this race around, and he's going to have to do it from back in the field. And, of course, with all those incident points that the iRacing officials in this series do check, yeah, that's probably not going to be pretty when the incident report does come out. I was talking just before that caution flag, though, to the strategist from Slip Angle Motorsports, Jordan Hightower, and he told me that they're looking at about 30 laps in the fuel here this evening. They were about 15 laps away from coming on to pit road, so we look at lap 41 right now. They'll come down, they'll get service on their race cars here, and then if it does go green to the end, Joe, magically we don't have a caution, they'll be able to make one more pit stop and be able to make it on the fuel, according to what Jordan is saying. And I know he's had some calculations in the past, so he knows what he's talking about. So we'll have to see if this thing does go green, and that does happen. But they're talking about 30 laps or so on the fuel.
So once again, strategy now coming into play more than ever here at Pocono. This is now for the rest of this race. If we have another a long green flag run like that, we could see strategy become the name of the game. Instead of passing, instead of position, it could be setting yourself up for that position. So when it gets to 20 to go, 15 to go, 10 to go, you're setting yourself up for success later on in the race. Remember, you can't win the race on lap number 50. You can't win on lap 75. You can't win it on lap 80. You got to win it on lap 100, and if you don't have a car that can run on lap 100, that doesn't have all the fuel it needs, the tires underneath it, that might cause that lack of strategy, that not playing that game, might end up costing you in the end.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to go with the flow of things as opposed to going your own way, but you know what? That's why we run these races, and why we see how, in fact, they do unfold each and every week. As Tim reported, it looks like everybody going to be on that same fuel strategy with, well, checked out, I was going to say 1 or 2 exceptions, but those are cars that appear to be a lap down. In the case of the number 40 machine of Lawton, he is a lap down, so he'll stay out. Everybody else on the lead lap, coming down to the attention of their crews. Very slowly, 55 miles per hour, makes for a long trek down this enormous pit road at Pocono. Leaders are in. Conti slides to a stop. He'll lock up all 4 tires, but he'll stay within the box. Right sides are up on the number 5 machine. Crew finishes 5 off, 5 on that side of the car. They'll come back around to the left side. It will be a 4-tire stop for Michael Conti. Looks like Michael Johnson going to win the race off pit road. 2 tires, we assume, on his car. Kenny Humpy and Michael Conti, as well as Brian Schoenberg, a 3-way race for that second spot off pit road. It got a little bit heated there for that position, but looks like for the most part everybody going to take 4 tires on that stop, guys. I'll be very interested to see how the Michael Johnson machine fares, however, with 2 right side skins.
And I can feel the steam up here from that race off the road, and this is where we come in with that. We come in with that new build, Tony, and I think you mentioned it there when we have the no tires here against the 4 tires of the rest of the field. Interested to see how this works. So I believe what we're going to do now is we're going to take our own pit stop, and we're going to step away for just a moment, and we'll regroup, and we'll come back with some more racing for the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series at Pocono.
What's inside Peak Antifreeze? 65 years of experience in hot and cold protection. From an independent, family-owned business that's never been afraid to give you exactly what's right for your engine and your wallet. Peak. Run true.
This is where it gets difficult. This is where your name's on the line, everything's on the line. You get that one chance to go out there and put down your best performance with the most amount of pressure.
You got to take this race car, this whole new group of people, go to the racetrack, somehow impress them, and oh, by the way, you got to do it now. It's now or never.
First thing that went through my mind was like, no way.
Just be real important to try to figure out how to keep the tires under him and run a smart 150 laps.
They might bump him around a little bit, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
everybody should enter next year's contest because you never know what can happen, man. You can come out here and run top 5 in your first K&N West race. So I'm so psyched right now. This is incredible.
And welcome back to the Pocono Raceway here in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Pace car comes across the line this time. We do anticipate the lights atop that machine will extinguish, which will mean 2.5 miles from now, we are, in fact, going to go back green flag racing. And they do so. Thomas Lewandowski going to get the free pass around the pace car, and he'll make his way back onto the lead lap after being involved in the first caution, or check that, the one of the first cautions of the evening. He's back all the way in the 35th spot, final car running on the speedway. So 2x2 they'll line up, and Tim, even though he's not behind the wheel of a race car, I think it looks and sounds like maybe Tyler Hudson has still made the so-called trek here to Pocono to maybe show up here and at least watch this race. More on that in a minute. It also sounds like that maybe Landon Harrison, some issues on pit road as well.
Yeah, Landon just came down pit road. I believe Tyler is actually getting ready for one of his teammates, whether it's Justin Bolton or one of the Lawtons. He's getting ready to go green, so we might be able to catch up with him under one of our next caution flags if we do have one. But Landon Harrison, I don't know if the webcam's up there or not, but he just came off pit road. He's got a webcam for us this evening. And the crew chief for that race car, who actually happens to be a strategist for Slip Angle Motorsports, Jordan Hightower, he says that the car is driving like a canned seagull right now. I don't know what a canned seagull drives like,
ask you
Joe,
the same
but
question.
yeah, I have no idea what it drives like. I've seen seagulls before, and they're not very fun when they're caged. Let's put it that way, or canned, as Jordan Hightower says. So we'll have to see where he comes through the field here, as he just came down pit road. I think he's going to wait for everything to happen in front of him, Joe. That might not be a bad strategy here if something big does happen.
I'm sorry, Tim. I'm still hung up on canned seagull.
It's Joe. It's nothing like tuna, I promise.
Canned, it would it be like Spam, only it's little seafoody?
Maybe.
But it's not seafood. It's a bird.
I'd rather not find out. Let's just
it
put
eats
it that
fish.
way.
Well, that's true, but I eat fish and I don't taste.
Hey, pace cars down off pit road, and we're back to green flag racing here at Pocono Raceway. Michael Johnson up front gets the jump on Kenny Humpy and Michael Conti, as both those drivers now side by side, 58 and 5, for battling for position number 2. The 58 couldn't do it on the low side. Can he do it on the high side? Not this time. 58 and 5 make contact, 3 wide through turn number 1. Humpy losing position as he continues to drop through this field. He goes from 2nd to 6th in a hurry. Guess who's back on the hunt? Ray Alfalla back in the hunt. Danny Hansen back in the hunt, and they are still fighting behind the 58 of Humpy.
And up front, the head of this group, look at Michael Conti. After Michael Johnson nicks the safer barrier on the exit of turn 2, Conti back to the point. Schoenberg up to 2nd. They're 4 wide briefly in turn number 3. They'll fall back down to 2 and 3 abreast on the exit of the corner. Nearly going to be a squeeze play as Lawton is in the middle. They'll fan out this very wide Pocono Raceway front stretch. Still 3, 4, and sometimes 5 abreast as they work down to turn number 1.
That may have been Adam Gilder that always ate the fence going into corner number 3, but somehow they all save, and we are back to single file for your top 5. Overland trying to pick up a spot, as will the 11 on Michael J. Johnson. He continues to fall back through the field. Kenny Humpy trying to make something happen here behind Danny Hansen, but right now it's all behind your leader as Michael Conti continues to work through corner number 2. You ride on the roof of the 11 of Brad Davies as he continues to look up. That is Chris Overland just in front of him. He's a Pro Series winner here, Joe. He knows how to take a checkered flag here.
In the box there, you see that 4 wide moment off of the turn there, and what a crazy moment that was. We've seen a lot of amazing driving here at Pocono tonight. We've seen a lot of ability, and we got now caution on the field. Big trouble on the field.
PJ Sturgis is involved in the 57, the 88 of Josh Berry. Caught a piece of it as well. It once again started what has become Calamity Corner recently, turn number 3, and same thing we saw happen twice to Kwame Ajay. Looks like that Josh Berry, the handle got out from underneath the him. He got caught sideways. Sturgis came in, caught a piece of it, and somehow, only it looks like maybe 3 cars got involved, but Josh Berry's night, I think it is done, Tim. He got pounded once he was sideways in front of the field by one or two other cars. Tough break for that Speedco truck lube machine. It might need a little more than an oil change.
Remember what we said about the 89 coming down pit road on that last lap of caution and maybe starting at the back and trying to avoid the stuff? Maybe we can get an onboard with the 89 to Landon Harrison, because that stuff happens and it gravitates towards the apron, and he's got one smoking car ahead of him coming out of that. That's Peter Bennett, the 69, that's tore up. But a lot of the stuff that happened in front of the 89 happened in front of him, happened below. He tiptoed his way through. There's actually a lot of cars here that get through here without any damage at all, Joe. The 82 of Alex Warren, he may have got a little bit of damage on the 3 of Brandon Schmidt as they were sliding down to avoid that. But the 89 gets through scot-free, and he's going to pick up a couple of spots through it.
Yeah, that is a hard break for the 88 of Josh Berry and the other two drivers that got involved in that one, the 69 of Peter Bennett and the 57 of PJ Sturgis. Both those drivers trying to do everything they can to avoid trouble tonight, but unfortunately trouble seemed to have caught them. And that turn number 3, you said it best there, Tony, as we got more guys coming down pit road. Calamity Corner at its best. Brandon Bowie and company coming to the attention of their crews down on pit road.
And it looks like it's going to be routine service for pretty much everybody at the back of the field. Justin Bolton is in. He'll overshoot his pit. Crew will go to work. Appears to be at least fuel and maybe some right side tires on the 36. A couple other drivers coming in as well. Sturgis is in. Bowie, Matt Boussis. Crew is around to the left side. 4-tire stop for him. Josh Lawton is down and away. Rob Ackley is done with service as well. Brad Mahar completes his trip to pit road. So wholesale stops towards the tail of the field. And we talked earlier, Tim, and you told us about the fuel. I think for these drivers, it's almost an insurance stop.
Yeah, they pitted a couple of laps ago, or a lot of these drivers pitted a couple of laps ago. This caution is definitely going to help them when it comes to the pit strategy. And those guys that did come down pit road there, Joe, they're going to get that little bit of extra insurance that they can make it on one more stop. Yes, they do have to come down one more time, whether you did stay out or whether you came down pit road. You are going to have to make at least one more stop in this race to get yourself to lap 100. But those guys that came down pit road, and maybe some of those guys that are going to camp out around the back of the field, might pull a Landon Harrison and get away from some of this mess that happens in front of them, as long as they can tiptoe through and they are not the mess per se that brings out another caution flag. We're getting close to the halfway point though in this race, so you're going to see a lot of these guys start to push towards the front of the field. With Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberg, Ray Alfala, Danny Hansen, and Kenny Humpy being your top 5. I like Chris Overland there sitting in position number 6, though. Just lurking in the weeds. He's won a race here before on fuel strategy, but he also had to drive the car to get there. So I like Chris Overland's chances right now in that number 47 car.
Strategy. That's what you're seeing play out here at Pocono. Each of these guys figuring out what they want to do, how they want to do it, and more importantly, how important these pit stops are. Lights might go off as time by, and it means we're only one circuit away from going back to green flag racing.
That means we're also only a lap or 2 away from halfway here at Pocono. We'll take the green with 40, well, check that. Looks like the lights are still on. So we'll actually take the green, it looks like, exactly halfway through this race with 125 miles still to go. That's the equivalent, basically, of one of these NASCAR Camping World Truck Series sprint races at Pocono. You don't think about 50 laps being a long time, but 50 laps can be an eternity here at Pocono. Tim Terry, I think that you finally got your hands on the defending NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series champion, Tyler Hudson, who, as we documented at the outset, not in the field tonight.
Yeah, not in the field this evening, and Tyler, it's got to be tough to watch all your peers run around this racetrack, and I know you like Pocono. It's got to be tough sitting up here and not being in the race car, per se.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I mean, you want to be out there, but actually, if I had to hand pick a track on the schedule, this would be it to miss. I just actually don't really like this track at all whatsoever, but I'm enjoying the broadcast and watching my teammates out there, trying to help them move up a little bit.
Now, I'm sure there's some fans out there that are watching. Did you and Nick Ottinger talk after last week? What happened from your perspective, and what happened afterwards? Did you guys talk over the 4 weeks that we've been off?
Well, I mean, it's just I don't know, a really hard race, and we kind of have a history of that, racing really hard together. And I mean, looking back on it, in the heat of the moment, you know, things happen a lot quicker than you think. And looking back on it, the move I tried to make on him down the backstretch when I went low was entirely too late of a move, and wasn't good judgment on my part, and I apologized to him for that. And then the second incident, I mean, I still don't think we're clear on what happened there. I didn't do anything. I mean, I couldn't have changed anything other than park the car on that second incident. And but we did. The official sat us down after the race, or a couple weeks later, and we talked. I said my piece, and Shannon tried to get us to both, you know, move forward from it. And I think we have. He wasn't very talkative back to me after I apologized and said a lot, so I don't know what his mindset is. But as far as I'm concerned, it's over and done with, and you know, I just want to move forward from after that.
Now, you did miss one race last season in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, and obviously came back and won the championship. You did have a rough race at Daytona and not here at Pocono Raceway on the racetrack, so you're not going to get any points here tonight. How big of a hole is this going to be to climb out of to defend this title?
It's definitely going to hurt us. I mean, like you said, maybe if Daytona, we didn't get caught up in that big one right there at the end, maybe it's a different story. But also, on the same hand, I think we came back from 70-point deficit with, 5 races to go, something like that. So anything's possible. It can definitely happen. And but I mean, realistically, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. But right now, I'm just racing to have fun and try to get maybe a top 5 in points. I think that's a realistic goal at this point. And you never know. I mean, like last year, that was kind of how I was viewing it, and we ended up right there for the championship. But if not for this race, being out for this race, I definitely think we were a contender for the championship. So you live and learn, and you know, that's just how the system works. Everybody knows that's how it is, and if you cause too many incidents, you're going to be parked. And unfortunately, it pretty much probably ended our season as far as championship goes, but that's the way it goes, and that's racing, and we'll just keep plugging away at it and do the best we can.
We're going to be halfway here in this race, and you mentioned the teammates that you're watching here this evening. Any strategy that you guys are setting up for? Typically, we do see one long green flag run here at Pocono that sees some possible green flag pit stops. We've seen a lot of cautions in the first 50 laps of this race. How do you set those guys up for what could happen or what may not happen for a green flag run in these next 50 laps?
Yeah, really, I'm not sure. I was just kind of spotting for them, calling out wrecks. David Cater's the crew chief over there, trying to get them set up on strategy and get their cars dialed in a little bit, and he's doing a good job. They struggled going into the race, but they're making a lot of changes during the race and getting the cars better. So you never know how these races work. You see guys that run near the back all the time and, you know, play some fuel mileage strategy or something and get a win or a really good finish out of it. So it's a long way to go, like you said, half the race. Anything can happen, and hopefully they get a little luck on their side and pull one out here.
Before we let you go and get back to racing, I know you have a bunch of marketing partners that help you get to the virtual racetrack each week. Who makes it happen for you?
Yeah, just One Up Motorsports, all those guys. It's a great team to be with. Peak Antifreeze, the guys that sponsor this series, of course, they're on the car this year, and got some pretty cool stuff coming up with them in the next month or so, and I cannot wait for that. Pretty excited for that. Just thank those guys for the opportunity. iRacing for everything they've done for me, giving me all these opportunities, and I look forward to the rest of the race.
And that's your defending champion, Tyler Hudson, in the 01 car. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks' time at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for 200 laps. And Joe, that's one thing everybody in iRacing gets to be excited about. Get to see Tyler Hudson in the Peak Stock Car Dream Challenge. I'm rooting for him. I don't know about you.
Oh, absolutely. That is one of the coolest things about this iRacing sim and about being a part of this iRacing sim is you've got that opportunity there to be a part of it and be a part of the real experience there on the track. Pace car about to pull off the pit road. There he goes. Michael Conti takes the green flag, and look who's immediately on his tail. Ray Alfalla passes his J-Show Motorsports teammates, and now Kenny Humpy looking to make a little move as well.
So Humpy feeling racy here as the green flag back out. Top 3 now single file, and Well, it's starting to get down to time to get business accomplished as they work down the long pond straightaway. Again, further back from about 10th on back, they fan out 2, 3, and sometimes 4 wide. Seems like we've seen that a lot here tonight, guys. Guys either getting a run on somebody or one car getting loose and stacking everybody up, but we've seen a lot of fanning out, particularly after the restarts. And in fact, now here goes Michael Johnson on the inside of, whoa, hello, Chris Overland for a moment there. And actually, that was Brad Davies to the inside of Overland. So guys are really shuffling things up as they work off turn. Oh, hello, Nick Ottinger. Ottinger and the 51 machine of Tyler Laughlin got together off turn number 3. And it looks like the 05 machine, Nick Ottinger, was reporting a tight condition earlier. And it appears that maybe the right front fender has been dinged on that car. Something tells me it's not going to get any better, Tim.
No, there's a lot of exciting action going on here. Adam Gilliland moving up through the field as well, trying to get into the top 10, him and Robert Hall. And I believe that's the 53 going at it as well. That's Brandon Hawk. So exciting little battle back there. Keep a half eye up front as Brian Schoenberg falling off the pace a little bit of the leader. But Ray Alfala has his hands completely full with Danny Hansen in the 32 car. So things are getting a little bit exciting up in front as we start the second half of this race, Joe.
Chad Lawton now getting around Johnson. That's the 26 machine. The 26 machine trying to at least out there as the 26 continues to run around that 39 of Michael Johnson out there. Let's run up on the roof cam now of that 26 machine. You can see just how close that battle is. He gets through that gear. 2 Toyotas battling back and forth each other. And if I can be honest, guys, it's kind of cool to say that. 2 Toyotas, man, being able to battle back and forth among the field of Chevys and Fords on the field. Here comes the 26 of Chad Lawton. The Viper has struck, and it looks like the Viper will pick up the position over Michael Johnson.
So Johnson, that stop from earlier appears that maybe it's not quite working out. Now, mind you, that car might not be as balanced as some of the guys he's up here racing with, but at least for the time being, it hasn't quite worked out the way he wanted. Short term, yes. Big gain, very doable. If you're going to try to do it for the long run, it might not be the best idea in the world. Meanwhile, up ahead of him, battle for that 5th spot continuing. Kenny Humpy, Ray Alfala right there in the middle of it. And here comes Brad Davies. Look at Davies now, Tim, on the outside of turn 1. Humpy gets loose in the bottom of the racetrack. Move Brad Davies into the top 5.
Oh, and Overland going to go to the outside as well as Kenny Humpy continues to try to gain this car back. The 47 on the outside trying to pick up one, and Byron Daly going to look on as well in his Ford as he tries to find something on Humpy. He goes to the inside of the 58. Kenny Humpy trying to stop the bleeding here on lap number 55 as the 93 looks at him for position number 7. Oh, this is getting exciting up in front, and don't look now, guys. Here comes Chad Lawton in the 26. 26 beginning to move up as well, as it looks like the 2 of Ray Alfala might lose a position here, Joe, to Brad Davies. Here comes Davies to the inside.
Where did Brad Davies come from as he just now shoots out of nowhere past Ray Alfala in the 2 machine? Brad Davies now position number 4, and Brad Davies doing everything he can to turn on the heat out here at Pocono Raceway. Great to see Brad up front. Great to see him start to move through the field, and now we're keeping an eye on the 30 machine of Robert Hall.
Hall getting by Michael Johnson. In fact, they're starting to stack up behind Michael Johnson. Adam Gilliland's there. Tyler Laughlin is there. There's a whole group of race cars trying to get by Michael J. Johnson. Brian Blackford back there one more time, as well as Kenny Humpy in the 58 machine. Looks like he now is battling with Chris Overland. Again, Byron Daly right there behind that pair. Here's Chad Lawton as well in the number 26 machine. For that matter, what's happened to Kenny Humpy? All of a sudden, a car that was a dominant top 3 easily race car, something has gone awry, it appears, Tim. That car working the bottom in turns 1 and 2, it seems like out of shape. Maybe trying to readjust the car for a different section of the racetrack, but there's only so much you can do on a pit stop here in the iRacing Sim, and I'm wondering if maybe this could bite Kenny Humpy before things are over with.
You can see the 58 working that wheel as he goes around corner number 2 and working into corner number 3 here this time. This is the first real green flag run that we've seen since the pit stop happened around lap number 40. As looks like Chris Overland is going backwards now as he's got Byron Daly to the inside of him. This might be the first opportunity that these guys had the opportunity to work on these race cars. We have trouble near the back here.
That's number 8 of Adam Gilliland in trouble as well. Adam Gilliland is just dropping down to the field after getting stuck on Calamity Corner. 47-15 making contact down now as well. I'm going to check out the 41 and 16. The 41 belonging to Jake Sturgis, the 16 belonging to Thomas Lewandowski as they make contact going into turn number 1. Business is picking up here, guys, and the big question is, we're gonna see another yellow flag. I have to believe. But my only question is, it's not a matter of if, but when, and more importantly, how does that change your strategy?
I think you're right, Joe. If anything we've seen the last lap or so between Kenny Humpy trying to dance with that car off turn 4, he did a pretty good job of doing it, although the shoes are beginning to wear out on his car. I think Adam Gilliland's shoes have already worn through the soles. That was one of those moments that he's going to need to change his underwear for, I think, because he just about bumped the farm. But what a great job by Adam Gilliland to save that race car. I think that lends us to something else to keep an eye on, though, Tim. We talked about Kenny Humpy, the handling going away. I think now this race is almost becoming, how free can you drive your race car off of turn number 3? Can you make it work on the top? Can you make it work on the bottom? But it's all about turn number 3. No surprise at Pocono you're trying to set the car up for that corner, but I think it's very surprising to see that so many drivers are hanging it out off turn number 3 as we continue to watch this battle. Brandon Hawk right here, Chad Johnson, Tyler Laughlin, Nick Ottinger. It's starting to become a hornet's nest now off of that Calamity Corner.
And you got Ottinger right in the mix of this as well as he closes in on the 53, trying to pass the 39. He's going to make the move on the 39 there. You got Brian Blackford in this mix as well. The 51 of T-Loft to the outside of the 53 of Brandon Hawk as they go at it side by side into corner number 1. It's going to be the 51 taking the spot for the time being. This is a fairly exciting battle back here for positions 11 on back. But you mentioned it, all these strategies, all these differing strategies. We got Ottinger down to the apron off the 51. And we've seen this before, Joe. This might not end up very pretty.
This might not end well for everybody as the 51 now gets by the 53 machine. That is Brandon Hawk. Brandon Hawk's about to make the move here on the 51. The 51 of Tyler Laughlin making the block hard on the 05 of Nick Ottinger. So far, everybody out here is starting to mind the P's and Q's as the 51 almost loses it. Here comes the 05 now. You get what you pay for, you reap what you sow, and the 51 looks like he has just reaped what he sowed out there a little bit as the 51 gets passed not only by the 05, but the 39 as well.
So Johnson going to try to make up a spot, and you know that Nick Ottinger cannot be very happy with Tyler Laughlin, but here's the thing to keep in mind. Nick Ottinger is in that exact same situation last race, and he didn't do the exact same thing. Maybe he learned something from that incident as well, or maybe Nick Ottinger, discretion a better part of valor, as he realized he needed to save that race car for later in the evening. Here comes Ottinger again on the bottom underneath of Brandon Hawkin. Ottinger has been pretty much stuck to that rumble strip in turn 3. It looks like, Tim, a few drivers have committed to the bottom there as hello Laughlin sideways again off turn number 3, and Ottinger now going to get the spot on Brandon Hawk, move Ottinger up to position number 11.
And the 39 going to try to go to the inside of T-Loff, as T-Loff, you mentioned, almost bought the farm off corner number 3, and he's going to let the 34 of Matt Busa go as well here. Brian Blackford closing in on this battle at a corner number 1. But these drivers are getting at it. 51 and 34 nearly had a moment out of the corner. The 34 of Busa to the inside and looking at the 39 as well. And here comes the 33 diving it in. Brian Blackford looking to pick up a spot or 2 out of this as he goes underneath the number 51 in corner number 2. They'll try to get it right down there in corner number 3. But as you see this pack, Joe, 2 drivers have pulled away from this pack, the 53 of Brandon Hawk and the 05 of Nick Ottinger. Ottinger going to try to pull away a little farther from this pack. What was 6 is now about 4.5 as we got one more car there, Alex Warren and Brian Day closing in on that pack as well. So it's getting exciting just outside the top 10.
Getting real exciting just outside the top 10. I'm still keeping an eye on that 51 of Tyler Laughlin. The crew chief telling him, just calm down, buddy. Just slow it up a little bit. You're going to be fine out there. You're still running top 15. We got to defend. That is now the 51 driving the 33 down the track. That's Brian Blackford is going with him. The 82 of Alex Warren. The 51 machine having a little bit of trouble controlling the car. Maybe having a little bit of trouble controlling his emotion out there as well as he tries to do everything he can to hold on to that top 15 spot.
Yeah, that just about got ugly again on the Long Pond straightaway. Even Brian Day starting to join this group now. That's the Plan B Sales Toyota. He actually made a cameo appearance on the Plan B, well, I would call it a spot, more like webisode. He and Steve Post from the MRN radio group, they had a little camera time with each other. So that was kind of cool to see for Brian Day. He's there in that group as well, but it looks like things now beginning to settle down, at least for the time being. The big thing I think we need to remember here, Tim, Michael Johnson, who kind of seems to be the guy that's antagonizing this whole backup, he's still on 2 tires that he took on a lap 41 pit stop. So he has not had 4 tires on that machine for quite a while, and maybe now finally the handling is going away on that 39 Fast Track Sims car to the point that maybe he's starting to drop back. But again, if you're one of these drivers looking to take 2 on a late caution, I think you do it. I think it's advantageous enough that if your car is close, you can make it work for you.
I think you do too. Brian Blackford closing in on T-Loft for 15th as Michael Conti has gone out in front of the field. He's about 1.9 seconds ahead of Brian Schoenberg, and about another second behind him is Danny Hansen. Jay Show's working pretty well up in front. Brad Davies in 4th. Kenny Humpy is position number 5 with Ray Alfala, Chad Lawton, Byron Daly, Chris Overland, and Robert Hall. Your top 10, Overland falling back a little bit as we're going to ride on board with Michael Conti. Take you for a lap around this Pocono Raceway, and Joe, Conti seems to be fairly fast right now as they come across 65 laps completed as you go into corner number 1 with the 5 car.
35 laps left to go here at Pocono Raceway. Conti, Schoenberg, both those drivers working almost identical laps there on the field. Don't count out Kenny Humpy, though, all the way back in the 58 machine, position number 5. He was 0.2 of a second faster than your leader last time by, and this could be exactly what I'm talking about right now, guys, for Kenny Humpy, playing that strategy game, trying to make everything count at the tail end of the field. Remember, or the tail end of this race, I should say. As we look at the drive, as we look at the number 5 there, Michael Conti, look at him drive this machine around, working that wheel out there. This is where really you're going to see guys test what the limits of this new car. You're going to really see them test what this car can do and how it can react as the laps get tighter and tighter here at Pocono.
And Joe, I think one of those things they're testing is, whoa, hello, one car way back in the field. Looked like it might have been like a Brandon Schmidt or a Thomas Lewandowski. It was one of the black cars in the field. Couldn't quite see who it was, but they had a moment off turn number 3. But yes, I think one of the things they're testing is what these cars do on a very long run, and Humpy, I think, might be on to something right now. As you see Kenny Humpy chasing down Brad Davies, Humpy, at the moment, the fastest car on the racetrack. You see a little bit of a crinkle in the left front fender of that car, though. He's been in to somebody or something. I don't know if that's helping or hurting Humpy right now, but nonetheless, he is the fast man in town. And the thing we've noticed so far, Tim, that car doesn't appear to be quite so, well, it's not quite as tail happy as it was early in the run. Maybe Kenny Humpy has found that magical balance between the air pressures in the car, the fuel load, and getting that car to tighten up over the course of the run to where now it's drivable and fast at the end of the run. The only question is, can he make up 3.5 seconds to Michael Conti in this short amount of time? I think he's given up too much over the course of the run to be able to make it back up.
And the end of the run, Tony, is going to come up fairly soon because these guys are going to hit pit road, I believe, in the next 5 laps or so. Because if these guys can go 30 laps, the last time they were down were 41, and they did have a caution in there as well. If they can go 30 laps from the end would be lap 70. So these guys are going to be on pit road very soon, as here comes Humpy to the inside of the 11 of Brad Davies. He'll look to pick up the spot going in to corner number 1, and it looks like he will. So move the 58 up to position number 4, and he'll chase down Danny Hansen as the 11 closes back in on the 58. Tries to get that suck up in corner number 1, but I don't think he's going to be able to do anything with the Ford Fusion in front of him. So Kenny Humpy will look to chase down Danny Hansen, Brian Schoenberg, and Michael Conti. And Conti actually has extended the lead about a half second over these past few laps. It's 2.3 between your top 2.
That might as well be an eternity here at Pocono Raceway. Eternity in any race for that matter. We've run 28 laps here on this green flag run, which means only one thing, guys. These guys are going to have to come down pit road. The question is when. The question is, when do you risk it? When do you roll the dice? When do you decide to do it? And just like a super speedway, these guys are going to need a little bit of help coming in and letting off pit road. Michael Conti hasn't made any indication yet he's going to come down pit road, but he's going to be forced to. The question is, will Schoenberg and Hansen come down pit road with him, or will they try to improve their positions on the field and stay out when Michael Conti come in? We got one down on pit road now.
Looks like pit stops are slowly beginning to take shape, and that's going to be the number 40 machine of Josh Lawton. His crew is already around to the right side on the number 40 car as he has come down to the attention of his crew, and it will be a 2-tire stop for the TT's Custom Diecast team. He is down and away with a full tank of virtual Sunoco Racing fuel, 55 miles an hour. Josh Lawton, can he make it the rest of the way? He's on the outside of that window, the very outer edge. Everybody else from this point forward should, Tim Terry, according to the information you've been given, should be able to make it on this final stop.
Yeah, they should be able to get to the end of this race. I believe the 36 had the hand out the window. For this time by, Justin Bolton is going to come down onto pit road, and he is the only driver within about the top 25 to come onto pit road this time, and he's on that line per se. He's going to come to pit road on lap 71, so he should be able to make it the rest of the way if we do go green, or be very, very close, as Mike Conti is leading this race, and we'll see when he decides to make that final stop. Keep in mind, Joe, we did have some drivers come in on lap 48 at the rear of this field, so that might help them a little bit when it comes to strategy. You never know. Somebody might mess up coming onto pit road, and it might bring out a caution.
Whoa! Hello, Ray Alfala. Sorry about that, Tim and Joe. Peter Bennett came off the access road in turn number 3. Ray Alfala decided to cut left down pit road, and there was just about a major catastrophe on the entrance to the pit lane as Alfala cut across the nose of Peter Bennett. Luckily for both of them, no contact, no harm, no foul. As Alfala is down, he'll come to a stop, and if anybody has been paying attention to what's been going on, we anticipate this will be 2 tires. Team is around to the right side. They'll change the right side skins on the Slip Angle Motorsports Ford of Ray Alfala. It'll be 4 tires for the 2-time series champion. He's down and away and rejoins the fray, Joe.
Rejoins the fray with almost causing part of the fray himself out there as well. Robert Hall are coming off pit road, and I believe Stephen Gilbert on pit road. 58 now coming in down to pit road. Tim, Tony?
55 miles an hour for Kenny Humpy as he will slowly creep his way down one of the longest pit roads in all the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze series. The crew waits on the wall with tires in hand and a full can or 2 of virtual fuel. They'll come down and he'll hit his marks in the pit box, and now they'll go around to the right side. That side of the car up in the air, air guns going ablazing. Right side tire change is complete, and it appears, yes, it will be 4 tires for Kenny Humpy. We'll see how his pit stop total equates to everybody else on the racetrack. His service is complete, and he now back on the speedway.
And I believe the 5 of Mike Conti going to come down pit road this time by as well. His teammates should be following him down. No, he's going to come down by himself, Joe. It's Mike Conti and a couple of others behind him. Chad Lawton. No, check that. That's somebody else coming down on the pit road. These cars all look the same at the end of it. Danny Hansen coming down. Brad Davies coming down. So I guess he's joined by a couple of his teammates. Brian Schoenberg, though, stays out.
Conti will hit his marks perfectly as he goes down on pit road. he could be looking at a 2-tire stop, though it wouldn't surprise me if he did a 4-tire stop here as well, with so many others doing the 4-tire stop. Connie will make a 4-tire stop. Brad Davies in the 11 down on pit road as well. It'll be 4 tires for him while he's down here. Danny Hansen takes 4 tires. Adam Gillen takes 4 irons. Michael Johnson takes 4 tires. All these guys now taking 4 tires and being down in a way, and I've got a feeling that some other drivers out here may have made that pressure.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we haven't seen more 2-tire stops than what we have already, as Johnson and now Gilliland come off pit road. Brad Mahar's service is completed, and it looks like now here comes Brian Schoenberg. Finally, the double nickel is at the double nickel pit road speed, 55 miles per hour, and Schoenberg all the way down in pit number 2. He'll come in, he'll hit his marks on the brakes right where he needs to be, and the crew will go around to the right side. Now, if you're Brian Schoenberg, do you take 2 tires or do you take 4? Because it takes nearly the same amount of time with tires for that full tank of fuel, and it will be 4 tires for Schoenberg. He's down and away, he'll drop the clutch, and it looks like he'll come out behind Michael Conti. Conti already in turn 1, and caution on the speedway. Schoenberg looks like he's going to lock into the 2nd spot. It is the number 3 machine of Brandon Schmidt and the number 40 machine of Lawton getting into it off the tunnel turn, Tim.
Yeah, the 40 and the 3 are coming through corner number 2. The 40 just gets all kinds of sideways, gets it up into the safer barrier, back down into the 3, and Brandon Schmidt, innocent bystander here, and the 40 and the 3 will both go for, I guess we call that synchronized barrel rolls down the back straightaway and towards corner number 3. Tough break for both of those drivers, but Brandon Schmidt, Joe, no place to go there for that number 3 car, and he's going to have a lot of damage to that race car.
Hard to say whether the 3 was an innocent bystander or if the 3 just ended up getting into him and moving him up the wall. So the 40 machine getting barrel rolled in the infield. The 3 end up getting his tuppence if he was involved in that incident. Looking back at it, though, it looks like it might have been a little bit of neck code as well being involved, as the 3 and 40 had a little trouble out there.
Yeah, not quite sure what it was, but either way, they appeared to touch, at least the result appeared that they touched somehow or some way. And if you're wondering why in the world we're saying that, and maybe you're new to this whole iRacing thing, very simply to put it in a matter of seconds, one computer thought the other computer was there. When you transmit something across a long distance, there's a little bit of what we call lag or latency, and sometimes the computers, despite how good the prediction code is, doesn't quite work out exactly the same as you want it to. I mean, at 160 miles an hour through that corner, a couple of thousandths of a second can mean the difference between trouble and making it out of the corner. So drivers that have not pitted, as we anticipate them coming down this time, looks like Byron Daly, Nick Ottinger, Matt Busa, Brian Blackford, Thomas Lewandowski, Alex Warren, really a whole host of drivers, Sturgis, Trombley, Harrison, and Josh Berry, all the top 10. Michael Conti was scored back in 11th. He will stay out on the speedway. But it looks like Daly, the leader now, going to be coming down to the attention of his crew, the Newtelligence 4. He is in. We'll have to go on board with him and see exactly what it looks like in the cockpit of that car, or that virtual car, if you will. Right side is up on the Newtelligence 4. They'll go around to the left side, one of only a few cars on the pit lane. Daly, crew chief Frank Kimmel II, they'll go for 4 tires on that machine, and it appears he will win the race off of the pit lane. Nick Ottinger going to follow suit. Blackford, Busa, and company, as Byron Daly, despite in any other racetrack, Joe or Tim, that would have been great for Byron Daly. It would have been so awesome. He'd have been in a great shape as far as being out of sync goes and being on the lead lap. But this is Pocono. You can pit, not go a lap down, and then when a caution like this happens, go by everybody that has to pit. Any other race, Byron Daly would have been in the catbird seat, but this time, not so much the case. That kid cannot catch a break, it seems.
And with these tires not falling off as much as the old build, you're going to have those drivers that did come down pit road because they don't have to worry about fuel and they don't have to worry as much about tires, even though they only went, let's say, 3 or 4 laps between their pit stop and the caution. They all stayed out on the racetrack. So that's you're going to have Michael Conti stay out on the racetrack and lead this race. more than likely. Actually, I say that, and Josh Berry is out in front of the field, I do believe, here, when you look at the grand scheme of things. So maybe Josh is trying to lead a lap here. He does have damage to that Speedco 88, but you're going to have the 5, the 55, the 32, the 58, all those players that we had prior to that round of green flag pit stops into caution flag pit stops, Joe, they're going to be back up in front of the field. So we are going to have a, let's say, less than 25 lap dash to the finish of this race, albeit 25 laps at Pocono, I guess, really isn't a dash, but there's no more pit stops. These guys have what they have, and we've seen it before on this series where we get to the end of the race and guys get a little bit greedy. They get a little bit, they want a little bit more than what they have, and we see a few cautions at the end of some of these races. Pocono is a very wide racetrack, but we've seen it before. Even here at Pocono, I believe last season that we ran here, there was a little bit of an altercation going into corner number 1, if memory serves me correctly, that ended up altering the race winner. So we'll have to see how this plays out here in the remaining laps of this event.
The remaining laps, I've got a feeling, are going to be incredible here at Pocono Raceway. More importantly, because these guys are going to do everything they can to make their move, get up front, and effectively go Machiavelli on this race. The ends justify the means. Well, for Michael Conti, Schoenberg, Kenny Humpy, Ray Alfala, get ready to see some of that take place. I don't think we're done watching combat here at Pocono.
I don't either, Joe, and for that, we're going to need to take a break and refresh to make sure we're ready to see that fight and watch the chaos that ensues. You're watching the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series live for Pocono Raceway. We'll be right back.
What's inside Peak Antifreeze? 65 years of experience in hot and cold protection. From an independent, family-owned business that's never been afraid to give you exactly what's right for your engine and your wallet. Peak. Run true.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines!
Michael Conti comes up at a corner number 4, and the checkered flag, he wins his first NASCAR iRacing.
Welcome back to Pocono. Well, all the beds have been made here at the Pocono Raceway and all the resorts and all the racetracks and all the hotels. Well, so to speak at least, because it's getting down to showtime, guys. 21 laps to go when we go back green. 52.5 miles to settle this 250-mile contest. Michael Conti will restart from the pole position as he did the original start. Brian Schoenberg second, and Danny Hansen in third. Humpy, Lawton, Davies, Alfala, Overland, Hall, and Bolton going to complete the top 10. It's almost like nothing has changed, Tim, since the very original start of the race, but oh, has it changed dramatically. These guys know what they've got. They've made changes, and they know exactly what they have to do to try to win this race. The first of which, was to make it to turn 1 on this restart. Pace car is off, green flag in the air, Conti once again on the jump, and here comes Danny Hansen trying to stick his nose in there underneath of Brian Schoenberg as they work into turn number 1. Behind them, they're 3-4 wide in the turn number 1.
Ray Alfala to the inside of the 26, the 47 of Overland to the outside, the 26 going to clear them through the middle. Behind them is the 30 and 57 as we have one driver down towards the infield, the 55 of Schoenberg going down there, and the 32 blocking the 58. Oh, some feelings are about to be hurt here, boys.
Feelings, maybe some bones about to be broken here as these guys try to navigate it. Amazingly, they find a way through without hitting anybody or each other. Schoenberg now second, Danny Hansen third. Kenny Humpy has hooked up with the 26 of Chad Lawton. He's bouncing through turn number 3 as he tries that low line once again. Not going to work, but he is going to at least put some distance between himself, Chad Lawton, and Brad Davies. Chris Overland now wants a piece of a party, and here comes Ray Alfala in that ghost number 2.
Alfala, Overland right there behind Chad Lawton and Brad Davies. Kenny Humpy ahead of that foursome for that matter as they all try to dash their way towards the front to catch Michael Conti. And Conti says, I'm going to have none of this. I am going to go to town. I'm already on the way home down I-80 with the trophy in my hand. Catch me if you can. Conti out for a half-second lead. Meanwhile, they're banging fenders behind them, Tim. Overland and Lawton getting into each other into turn number 2. Overland trying to take advantage of it as well. Things are getting very hairy further back in the running order.
Yeah, business is about to pick up about 5th or 6th place here as the 2 and the 47 going at it. I believe that is back in the pack, just inside the top 10. Robert Hall's in the top 10 as well, looking at this battle side by side in front of him as Ray Alfala tries to defend the position on the 47. Contact made into corner number 1, and the 47 of Overland's going to have to regroup there. That was almost big.
That could have been huge for the 47. Now the 47 forced to slow up. Here comes the 30 of Robert Hall as he's going to try to get around that 47 that's limping a little bit now, after almost having his nose chopped off down there. Now, don't look now, but here comes the 8 of Adam Gilliland, who almost caused an incident earlier. He's now working on the 30, now trying to get around the 47. Adam Gilliland trying to get himself a big finish tonight here at Pocono.
And Adam Gilliland hasn't made a lot of noise tonight. He's been very, very subdued, very calm, but guess what? Here he is at the pay window, trying to shuffle his way further forward in the line. And right now, having some pretty good success. He'll get underneath the Robert Hall, try to slide up into him. They'll nearly make contact. Gilliland now on the bottom underneath the Hall. This is good news if you're Chris Overland. Means that maybe you can get your wits back about you and race your way back up to Ray Alfala. As now it looks like Gilliland thought about falling back in line. He'll do so at least briefly behind the 30 machine of Robert Hall. Single file through the tunnel turn. Although behind him, PJ Sturgis just about got into Brandon Honk and caused another yellow flag. But nonetheless, things have calmed down there. Further ahead of them though, business has picked up. Humpy ahead of Brad Davies. He's caught Danny Hansen and Brian Schoenberg, Tim.
And here comes Humpy to the inside of Danny Hansen. Hansen trying to hold him off. Danny Humpy, though, has a run going down to the first corner. We'll see if the 58, your point leader, can pick up one more spot. But don't look now. Here comes Brad Davies in the number 11. Davies looking over this battle in front of him for position number 3. And these guys are pulling away from the rest of the field. But as they battle, Mike Conti also pulling away from them in turn as the 58 continues to work over the 32. And he might be one there, almost contact. Yes, there is. Down to the inside goes the 32 and 58. This is going to hurt. 32 and 58, heavy damage. Caution flag should be flying here. No caution yet. 32 of those tore up.
32-58 making contact coming out of the turn, and now the 32 runs into the 58, almost a retaliation. Caution flag out as a result of that one. But guys, really the 32 is got to thank the 11 of Brad Davies for all of that one, for making all of that work out the way it did out there. The 32 not happy the way everything ended, but I just don't have any words.
Yeah, Joe, it looked like it was just a product of hard racing. Kenny Humpy knowing he's running out of laps with a car that, as we've documented, very, very loose, much a handful early in the run, just trying to use up all the racetrack he could. He tried to stay off of Hansen, but it appears maybe the two just barely got into each other, and that sucked the two of them together into a synchronized spin down the back straightaway, and very lucky it didn't catch anybody else in the aftermath. This Humpy could have been bounced back out into the flow of traffic, and I'm sure Hansen's retaliatory move not going to be looked on very well by the stewards at iRacing as well. Nonetheless, it does put us under caution here, Tim, and now the question is, what do you do with less than 15 laps to go if you're Michael Conti, Brian Schoenberger, if you're a Byron Daly, a Brian Blackford, somebody further back in the running order? What do you do?
I think if you're up front, you stay out. As long as you're good on fuel, which these guys should be, especially with these last two cautions, you're good on fuel. If you're up front, if you come down, you come down for only two, but I think if you're one of the guys up front, I think you got to stay out with the way these new tires are built with this build. If you're back around, let's say, 10th, 15th place or so, you might want to come down onto pit road and maybe play some strategy out. We're showing the replay of the second hit, and this is what ultimately brought out the caution. Now, I don't know how the iRacing officials, Joe, are going to score this, but the initial contact between Humpy and Hansen coming out of the corner was not what caused the caution. Ultimately, it was the 32 retaliating on the 58 to bring the yellow flag out. Tony mentioned the retaliation probably not going to look well on the official side, but the 32 running into the 58, that was the caution. The 3 blew up about 5 seconds after that. So I'm sure the officials are they're going to have their hands full here, and in just a few moments' time, I'm sure they'll look at it or look back at it in about 15 laps.
This is going to be a very, very hard incident to decipher, and really it starts all around that number 58 machine of Kenny Humpy. He was trying to race that 32 machine and Danny Hansen as hard as he could. He ends up bouncing through the turns. He ends up bouncing through the turn, as you saw there on the replay, and forced to check up there. Ends up getting, and then the 11 of Brad Davies ends up getting in the 58, and that starts a chain reaction. So Danny Hansen's frustration may be a little misguided there as he ran in the 58 to thank him for that causing that incident. As I understand, we've got a couple guys coming down pit road.
A couple of guys down on pit road. Back towards the tail of the field, Justin Trombley, Brandon Hoff, looks like Brad Mahar, Justin Bolton, and of course Kenny Humpy on pit road, Joe. Pretty much all the guys back towards the tail of the field that had nothing to lose as they'll come in for service. And you know what? I guess I can't blame them, Tim. Take every advantage you can get. You're already in the back. You have nothing to lose. You might as well get that extra little bit of grip and maybe that last final adjustment that can help propel you up a couple of spots. I don't think it's going to take them from being a 20th place car, though, to a 5th place car. Not from what we've seen tonight.
Well, we've seen some pretty big wrecks in this race. If that does happen again, that 5th place might not be too far-fetched if he can make up some time and make up some positions on the racetrack. But yeah, you're fighting I don't want to say fighting a losing battle, but you do have a tall hill to climb if you are sitting back there, let's say around where Landon Harrison is in 24th place and trying to make your moves through the field. Nick Ottinger not having a great night either. Through all of this that has happened with the green flag, pit stops, and caution flags and everything, Nick Ottinger's running back in 19th right now in the 05 Toyota Camry. He's got a huge hill to climb. Brian Blackford having a good night in 13th place. Byron Daly, his teammate just in front of him, in 12th. But looking back at that point picture we mentioned earlier, the 80 and the 29 came in 2nd and 3rd. They're both out of the race. Jake Sturgis has made a recovery from being outside the top 30. He's up in 17th. Still got a little ways to go, though. The 26 at Chad Lawton still runs 4th. He's standing to gain a lot in this race. And a driver that was within the top 10, Joe, that was looking to have a good night, just lost his marbles on the back straightaway. Danny Hansen was in the top 10 in the standings, tied with Tyler Hudson and Ray Alfala in points. That's definitely not going to help the matters of the number 32 car after that incident. And depending what happens with the iRacing officials, it probably won't help them in the coming weeks either.
But take a look here at the guys that are top 10 in points and who's not running now as a result of hard racing here at Pocono. Kenny Humpy, off track. Brandon Cattell, off track. Kevin King, third in points, off track. Danny Hansen, seventh in points, off track. Tyler Hudson, off track. Byron Daly still on track, but not sure how there. So some of the guys. So the guys here that are now in contention for points are guys like Jake Sturgis, who are currently running 17th on the field. Chad Lawton, who is running now 4th on the field. Nick Ottinger, who is in the 05 machine, who's running 19th. This is not going to be a glorious points race for anybody really involved here in the top 10, maybe even the top 15 there, Tony and Tim. And I've got a feeling that this might end up becoming some of the unofficial drop race for some of these guys.
That's exactly what I was just thinking, Joe, as you ramble off the list of people having not so stellar runs here this evening. Yeah, this might be the drop race for those guys, and I think they're very thankful that those things do exist because of nights like tonight. But the downside of using your drop race at a place like this, well, it's very simple. It's given to you for a reason, but you'd rather drop a race later because you know that you used everything up as good as you could up to that point. Now, with this being race number 5, Tim, you know in the back of your head, I have no more mulligan. I've got to be flawless from here on out. And some of these drivers, I want to say they can't take the pressure, but it weighs on them, and sometimes that causes more mistakes than what there would have been otherwise.
Yeah, that pressure will sometimes get to you as the lights come off. The pace car next time by will go green with 11 laps remaining in this event. You're going to see some of these drivers come down the stretch, especially when they know that pressure is really on, when they get to that point just before that no drop zone per se at the end of the season, where these guys are going to have to perform. They know that there's no more mulligans left. We mentioned earlier in the evening, Tyler Hudson misses this evening. He had a rough race at Daytona, so that doesn't help him either. You can't really afford in this series, the way the competition is, to have 2 bad races. You can have 1 bad race in the series, at least in the first few races of this season, but you really can't afford a second bad race because it knocks you out of contention for the title. These guys obviously racing for the top 20 to lock themselves into the series next season, but they're looking for the bigger picture, Joe. They want to get in, get some money or get some iRacing credit out of this season, get in the top half of this series and fight for something and make it worth something at the end of the day.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day. If you can't get the trophy, you want a little bit of cash. If you can't get the cash, you want the iRacing credit. If you can't get the iRacing credit, you definitely want to get invited back next year to Pocono Raceway. So Michael Conti continues to, we'll get back to the lead when we restart here with 11 laps to go. Brian Schoenberg second, Brad Davies third, Chad Lawton fourth, Ray Alfala your top 5, Chris Overland, Robert Hall, Adam Gillen, Brandon Hawk, Tyler Laughlin your top 10. And now all eyes will be on the driver of that number 5, Abuto Gaming Cockpits machine. He's been so dominant all night long. Can he hold it on for 11 more laps? That is a question, Tony.
We're about ready to find out. 27.5 miles remain here at the Pocono Raceway for the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Pace cars off, green flags out, and Brian Schoenberg is on the button. Look at Schoenberg down the front straightaway. He rocketed ahead of Michael Conti, and he'll clear him into turn number 1 for the first time tonight. I think we've seen somebody pass Michael Conti on the racetrack. Now the question is, how does Michael Conti react, and can he keep his wits about him? Can he stay patient as he tries to run Schoenberg back down, who we know, Tim, is going to be very aggressive to try to keep that lead?
And as these guys go down into corner number 2, you're seeing a lot of drivers pushing to the front of the field outside the top 5. But you mentioned it, Schoenberg lights out on that restart, was lights out on an earlier restart as well with Kenny Humpy, but now he has to defend from his teammate. Here comes the 5 of Mike Conti, looking to the inside for the lead position. Schoenberg has to defend from the outside. He'll lead lap number 90. They'll see 10 laps to go this time by. But Joe, does Brian Schoenberg have enough to hold off his teammate and get his first win in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series?
That is a $64,000 question with 10 laps to go. Schoenberg showing strong out here, showing strong in front of that 5 of Conti. Brad Davies now right behind both of them, trying to make it work. Let's go ahead and take a look at the replay in the box real quick here of the 82 machine. On that restart, you see Alex Warren making heavy contact with that driver around him, trying to get that push. Everyone trying to make it work for themselves. Everyone trying to get that push, get moving up front. One guy trying to get back, moving up front, Michael Conti, as he's going to try to take away the lead from teammate Brian Schoenberg. Schoenberg trying to hold on the grip strip. Can he do it? The 5 down low. It's going to be a drag race coming off the turn. And now it's going to be the 55 still leading, but for how much longer, Tony?
Hard to say. The good news for Michael Conti, he's got the preferred lane in turn 1. Schoenberg, though, going to try to pinch him down. He's going to try to contact Schoenberg into the outside wall. Brian Schoenberg trying to throw the block or at least pinch his teammate Michael Conti. Slid up into the outside wall. Conti very lucky not to get sucked into it as well. We saw it happening maybe in turn number 3 as the two of them were battling side by side, and Conti drove it in deep. Schoenberg on the very edge of control, but the bottom is prevalent in turn 1. We saw Schoenberg realize that and try to get as much of it as he could. And Tim, looks like maybe trying to pinch your teammate to slow them down. Well, at least if it's Michael Conti, might not be a good idea.
And when you look at it, it doesn't matter if it's teammates or who it is. You got to put yourself in Brian Schoenberg's shoes. Regardless what happened there, whether it was the 5 coming up, 55 coming down, hard racing, whatever the case may be, the 55 is gunning for his first win in this series. He's been in this series since the inception. I know he was a little bit excited to try to get up there and battle for the Lynn position, as you see the replay here of what happened, what put us under this caution flag. And Joe, when you look at it at the other side of the coin, one of the drivers that probably feels the worst about all of this is Mike Conti. After that contact, sends his teammate into the fence, and Mike Conti has had one of the best cars this evening. Now he's got to defend off Brad Davies, Ray Alfala, Chad Lawton, and Chris Overland. But you have to feel for those two guys. Mike Conti probably feels the worst out of the contact that sends his teammate into the fence, and I'm sure Brian is probably not happy. He's a pretty animated driver. I'm pretty sure he's not happy right now.
I've known Brian for a very, very long time. I've known him from the NASCAR racing 2003 days, the ASCORS days, all the way into iRacing as this series evolved. And now, you know, as I just look at it, I look at him, I can't help but think, why? Brian, you were looking at a 1-2 finish there, buddy, and I know you were excited. I know you got to know both those J-Show Motorsports guys were excited about the possibility of a 1-2 finish there. They were thrilled about that. Why? What would... I just don't have any words. I genuinely, honestly don't have any words for what I just saw. I know both those drivers are excited. Maybe adrenaline, maybe emotions got the best of them, but that is not how you race a teammate. I'm sorry. That's just not how you race a teammate.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for you. Obviously, we don't know the team politics within the J-Show group, but there are certain teams in racing that say, look...
I guess Tony's speechless as well.
Well, yeah, apparently. But let's look at it this way, Joe. There are certain teams that have various team orders. Some say, race. Do whatever you got to do. Just race each other. Just try not to, you know, break each other's race cars, if you will. Unfortunately, that kind of happened here. And other teams have very strict team orders. We don't know what it is in the J-Show group, but I'm pretty sure part of it's going to be don't wreck the race cars when your teammates are around you. And that did happen here. But now the question is, Tim, can you put it behind you if you're Michael Conti? Can you get past that and worry about the guys behind you now, Brad Davies and Ray Alfala, among others?
Oh, you've got to. You've got to park it here and look forward. You can't really look back when it comes to this, especially when you're trying to hold off veterans in this series like the 11, the 2, and the rest of this field. You really cannot let what just happened be a part of your next. It's going to be 6 laps or so when we come back this time. We'll probably get green with 4 or 5 laps to go in this race. You really have to park it right now and look forward. As hard as it probably is for Mike Conti, because he probably feels bad for what happened, regardless what way you look at it, whether you're on the 5 or the 55 side, and I know a lot of people in the spec chat within the server they're kind of undecided, Tony. We have some people watching the race that think that might have been the 5's fault, and some that may have thought the 55 came down. So regardless, whatever side you're on, it was hard racing, and the 55 went into the fence, and the 5 is still leading the race. So whatever way you look at it, the 5 has to park those emotions, whatever emotions may still be there, and continue on with this.
Yes, you do, Tim, and there is no doubt about Michael Conti. Now, his young age, it might be easier to do than maybe if you're, a little bit older, but, also by the same token, that youthfulness and that exuberance can work against you sometimes, and maybe Michael Conti thought, well, I need to get me a win here, and maybe stuck his nose in there a little deeper than maybe he should have. Maybe he, thinking it over in his head, realized, I should have backed off and went at it again. I still had 8 or 9 laps to make things happen. But he's going to have a little bit more time. An extra lap or so of caution than what we anticipated means we should go back green with about, complete lap 40, with about 4 laps to go. 10 miles is all it's going to be left to settle it. We'll come back and bring it to you live here from Pocono. You're watching the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series live. We'll be right back.
This is where it gets difficult. This is where your name's on the line, everything's on the line. You get that one chance to go out there and put down your best performance with the most amount of pressure.
You got to take this race car, this whole new group of people, go to the racetrack, somehow impress them, and oh, by the way, you got to do it now. It's now or never.
First thing that went through my mind was like, no way.
Just be real important to try to figure out how to keep the tires under him and run a smart 150 laps.
They might bump him around a little bit, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Everybody should enter next year's contest because you never know what could happen, man. You can come out here and run top 5 in your first K&N West race. So I'm so psyched right now. This is incredible.
What's inside Peak Antifreeze? 65 years of experience in hot and cold protection. From an independent, family-owned business that's never been afraid to give you exactly what's right for your engine and your wallet. Peak. Run true.
Welcome back. The Pocono Raceway field has doubled up, and you know what that means, Tim Terry? We're getting ready to go back racing. Let's take a look, Tim, at what brought us under caution this final, we hope, time.
Yeah, some hard racing between the two teammates, and regardless what side of the fence you're on, who brought out that caution, I'm going to chalk it up to good hard racing and a tough break for Schoenberg, and I'm sure Conti doesn't feel the best about what happened there. The one thing, Joe, we have to watch here, Shannon Whitmore, chief official for this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, telling all the drivers to stay in line on the restart. There is a restart lane change rule. Back in the Pro Series, it bit P.J. Sturgis, and it was a controversial call that bit P.J. Sturgis, but nevertheless, Shannon Whitmore warning these drivers to stay in line. Do not change lanes on this restart until you hit the start-finish line. Pace car is going to peel off here. 4 to go. Green flag flies, and we got one more. And we got a huge wreck on the front straightaway, about 9th on back.
Looks like Byron Daly is in it. Adam Gilliland was in it. Looked like maybe it started when some car, spun the tires, but it was back for about the 10th, 12th spot or so is where it all started. And it looks like, going back at the replay, that maybe Adam Gilliland just did not go when the time came, then spun the tires. Teloff got in it, Daly a hard hit, and about 6 or 7 other race cars caught a piece of it. But it all started with the 8 and the 93 as they were on the outside and really nowhere to go, Tim. Tough break for each of those drivers because they were having some pretty established runs up in the top 10. And Byron Daly, I guess he had to grab himself a handful of driven steering wheel. I don't care. They might be the best steering wheels in the business, the driven wheels, especially their new sim wheels, but not even the best steering wheel on the market can keep you out of a crash like that. That was just wrong place, wrong time for Daly and the guys behind him.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of steering wheel you have. Just trying to get through one of those wrecks is more luck than anything. A lot of these drivers, or I shouldn't say a lot of these drivers, some of these drivers trying to get through there using a little more gas than others. Landon Harris in the 89 nearly made it through. We talked about earlier where he shot the hole on the outside and made it through. Well, he nearly made it through. Josh Berry and Justin Bolton made a little bit of contact. 36 came down, just cranked the wheel left in front of traffic, and 88 was there, got into him, and the 89 gets a little bit of damage from it. But I don't think it's really going to matter as long as your motor is going to last the rest of the race. And for the case of Justin Bolton, he's smoking. He's probably got a meatball flag, as does Brandon Hawk, and probably a couple of others. We are likely going to finish this race under the caution flag. I don't think we're going back green. So as long as Michael Conti can keep that thing under him for the remaining 3 laps of this event, we are likely going to see Mike Conti go to victory lane at Pocono.
Just a gigantic chain reaction out there, guys. I'm just keep watching this replay in awe. It's just a chain reaction. Everybody's nerves getting up. Everybody's excitement building up. Everybody just pumped to get this last 4 laps done in the books. And all it takes is one false move. All it takes is one false start. All it takes is one lapse in concentration. And next thing you know, you're collecting literally every car behind, almost very literally every car behind you. There's a lot of broken cars now. There's a lot of smoking cars now. And the good news is for Michael Conti, who's only running a limited schedule, he's effectively locked up a win here, and that's something I don't think he was expecting to do this season. The bad news, though, is if you're some of those other guys that could have been competitive tonight, if you're a Nick Ottinger, if you're a Brian Day, if you're a Michael Johnson, or anybody that's right now in the top 5 in points, your race is effectively over before it even began. Your fate was decided by somebody else.
But that's sometimes the way it is in racing. You don't have control over all the circumstances. You do everything you can to prepare to put yourself in the best possible position and let circumstances dictate the outcome, as Richard Petty is so famed for saying. In the case of Michael Conti, he did his preparation, he did his work, he did the best he could do and let the circumstances dictate the outcome. Tonight, assuming nothing freak happens to that Abuto Gaming Cockpits machine, Tim, it looks like it's going to be Michael Conti visiting victory lane for the first time this season.
And Joe mentioned part-time for Mike Conti. That was the plan at the start of the season, but you'd have to believe he comes into this race 16th in the point standings, about 36 points behind Kenny Humpy. Picks up the win here. He will pick up his second top 5 of the season. I don't know if that's going to change his plan at all, but you would have to believe. Pick up a win here, move up probably, if not into the top 10, fairly close to the top 10 in the point standings for the number 5 car. He's run all the races so far, so it hasn't been a part-time effort thus far in this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series season. It might change something for this Abuto Gaming Cockpits number 5 as he comes by that time. 2 laps to go. Brad Davies, great run for him. Ray Alfala, Chad Lawton, yeah, those guys were around the top 5 for most of the race, as was Chris Overland. Robert Hall is going to come home with 6th. Brian Blackford 7th. T-Loff going to come home in 8th. PJ Sturgis in 9th. And Nick Ottinger, we talked about him around the top 15, top 20 or so in the late laps of the race. He comes home with 10th. So there's some drivers there that Joe picked up some spots due to the incident, but had been hanging around the top 10 for most of the race. The 51 car was good for most of the race. He comes home with a top 10 run. The 57, same deal. 33 of Brian Blackford was knocking on the door for most of the race, and they come home with top 10 runs at the end of it.
And I think you hit the nail, though, on the head there, Tim, when you talk about Michael Conti winning tonight's race. He said he was only going to be a part-timer. He said he was only going to run a limited schedule this season here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. He's had 4 starts, though. He has started all 4 races we've run here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. He picked up 10 positions in his last showing, 1 top 5, 2 top 10s. So this one win, number 1, will loft Conti maybe into the top 10 in points, and number 2, it might absolutely positively change his mind about what he wants to do for the rest of this season. Having a win, getting into the top 10 in points 5 races in, I think that might be enough to make him reconsider if he just wants to be a part-time participant or if he wants to try to make a big run this season.
It might change his mind, Joe. Of course, it might not. We saw that years ago with Mark Martin when he was doing that part-time schedule thing. Everybody said, oh, he's running great. He's going to reconsider. And he didn't. He said, I'm sticking to my plan. This is what I wanted to do. And that's exactly what he did. Michael Conti could do the same thing. White and yellow flags are in the air. Remember, the green-white checker has not been automated into the iRacing software as of yet, although they're still working on it. The Tony Gardner team hasn't quite got all the bugs out of it yet, so quite happened. Nonetheless, Michael Conti doesn't care. He wants it to be like this. He wants to come to the checkered flag under any circumstances possible, and he's only about 1.75 miles from making that happen, Tim, as he circulates around the triangle here for the final time.
Yeah, white flag is out, and think next week we go to Charlotte, or 2 weeks' time we go to Charlotte for a 200-lap affair. And looking back at the results from last season, Mike Conti had a top 10 run there as well. So he's looking to build something on this season, and you might very well see Mike Conti come back and get his second win of the season coming up in 2 weeks' time. Brad Davies, Ray Alfala as well, always good at those types of racetracks. And when you look at this race, when we close this off, Joe, you got some drivers that are kind of thinking what might have been. Brian Schoenberg was up front, led some laps, was strong on restarts. He's going to come home probably somewhere around 20, late 20s, early 30s. He is out of the race. He has scored on the lead lap the last time by, so he'll probably be somewhere 27th, 28th or so. You got Byron Daly involved in the last wreck as well. Danny Hansen ran up front. Kenny Humpy ran up front. They're going to finish in 33rd and 32nd place. There's a lot of drivers, Joe, that are kind of thinking what might have been. Kevin King 38th, Joey Round 37th. There's a lot of guys at the back of this field that are going to want this race back.
And there's a lot of guys who want this race back, considering the next tracks in the season. As we look forward to the next 6 races: Charlotte, Dover, Michigan, Kentucky, New Hampshire, then Indianapolis. That is definitely going to make for some very interesting racing, and a lot of guys who are going to want this race back. But the guy who does not want this race back is Michael Conti. Crosses the start-finish line for the final time, and he is officially your winner here at Pocono. 100 laps survived, and the part-timer now getting congratulations from all the other drivers around him. The part-timer picks up a big win and a big part of the season.
Very, very big win from Michael Conti as he'll come to the checkered flag and end up winning here at Pocono. I'm sure that winning from the pole was on his mind, but I don't think he planned on doing it quite like this. Nonetheless, we'll get his thoughts. I'm sure we might have a chance to talk to Brian Schoenberg before things are said and done. And, of course, we'll talk to the rest of the top 5, as we always do here on PSR TV. Thanks for joining us. Our post-race show for the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series is coming up in just a couple of moments. Don't go away. We'll be right back to talk to your winner and more.
What's inside Peak Antifreeze? 65 years of experience in hot and cold protection. From an independent, family-owned business that's never been afraid to give you exactly what's right for your engine and your wallet. Peak. Run true.
This is where it gets difficult. This is where your name's on the line, everything's on the line. You get that one chance to go out there and put down your best performance with the most amount of pressure.
So you got to take this race car, this whole new group of people, go to the racetrack, somehow impress them, and oh, by the way, you got to do it now. It's now or never.
First thing that went through my mind was like, no way.
Just be real important to try to figure out how to keep the tires under him and run a smart 150 laps.
They might bump him around a little bit, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Everybody should enter next year's contest because you never know what could happen, man. You can come out here and run top 5 in your first K&N West race. So I'm so psyched right now. This is incredible.
Welcome back to Pocono Raceway, where Michael Conti burns them down here on the front straightaway. A very, very well-deserved set of burnouts for Michael Conti. He beat Brad Davies to the checker flag. Ray Alfala finished 3rd. Chad Lawton. Chris Overland came home in 5th. Robert Hall, Brian Blackford, Tyler Laughlin, TJ Sturgis, and Nick Ottinger rounded out the top 10, Tim.
Yeah, and there's a lot of drivers that are excited. One of those drivers happens to be in victory lane. Mike Conti just pulling in, leading 81 laps here this evening. Mike, utter domination. But first, let's talk about something that happened with the second to last caution of the race. You and Brian Schoenberg racing hard for the position.
Yeah, I don't. Let me just start by saying I want to thank Tom Lewandowski and everyone that partakes in the J-Show Drill Aisle Alliance. We've been working hard since this build came out, and we found stuff as you could tell tonight, and we had 5 of the fastest cars, and unfortunately 3 of them had trouble. 1 a connection problem, 2 an over-aggressive maneuver, and 3 a teammate who could have backed out. I remember how frustrated I was back at Richmond last year when John Gorlinski took me out of the lead, and I can only imagine the frustration that Brian is under right now. I as much of a racing incident as it was, I was the car in the bottom. I should have backed off more and accounted for the bumps down there, but it's just, with the setups the way they are now, it's tough to run that extreme bottom, so I tried to miss that, and I ended up flipping him and wrecked him. So I can't apologize to him enough because he got me in the restart. I screwed up. He was in the lead, and I screwed up. So other than that, it was a fun race. I wish there was a few less cautions, but I'm just glad that we showed some speed tonight and we really dominated the race for the most part.
And looking at this, it becomes your 4th series win, I do believe, in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. It comes at a great time as well, putting yourself up a little bit further in the point standings. But talk about some of those restarts. Brian Schoenberg was quick on those restarts. You had to be lights out in order to lead 81 of these 100 laps this evening.
Yeah, the restarts at the end were more frustrating than fun. You're in a very tight box with the way the pace car goes off and the way that the green is thrown. So that one where Brian got around me, I was just trying to judge the pace car, and I was going a little bit too soon, so I backed off and he got the jump. But for the most part, I was able to get decent restarts the whole night, and I mean the car was phenomenal. The car carried me absolutely tonight. It was great in qualifying trim. I was off a 10th and a half in qualifying trim, still got the pole, and it was fast in the race the whole night. I mean, we had some battles with Kenny and Danny and of course Brian and Brad a little bit toward the end, but we had a really good car. So, like I said, I'm happy about that. Happy to get Butto and Jeremy Lukaszka, and I want to send my condolences to Jeremy, everybody in his family. They lost somebody. Someone close to them this week, and I know Jeremy's pretty bummed about that, so I hope he's doing okay tonight. Hope he's feeling better. But yeah, I'm not, as you can tell, I'm not very happy with myself and how that ended. I wanted to see Brian get his first win, but unfortunately I screwed that up. So we'll go on to Charlotte next week. Hopefully they give me 8 incident points so I can not do something stupid again next week, and we'll see what we can do there.
Joe mentioned in the late laps of this race at the start of the season, you were a part-time car. You said you were going to run a few races, and then that was you're going to pick and choose throughout the season depending where you wanted to run. What's the strategy now? Does this win change anything? It should put you close to the top 10 in points. Does it change anything? Part-time season, full-time season? What are we going to see?
Of course, a win is crucial at this point, because like you said, it gets me up toward the top 10, if not in the top 10. But I'm here to have fun, and I had fun tonight, up until, that last incident there. But I mean, with the way we're running, it would be foolish for me not to come back, keep running races consecutively. I know the next one's Charlotte, and I'm sure we're going to be great there as well. I know everybody's going to have more time to work on their stuff and get their packages better, but hopefully we'll still be really fast there too. So I'm going to be at Charlotte. I don't know what track is after that. I really don't know the schedule that much. I'm just kind of playing it one race at a time. But I'm going to be here until it's not any fun anymore. That's the best answer I can give you.
You mentioned some of the great partners on your car. You mentioned some of the teammates as well. Anybody else you want to thank for putting you in victory lane this evening? Who makes it happen for the 5 team?
Yeah, again, just Butto Gaming Cockpits, at Jeremy Lukaszka, that's his Twitter handle. The RCRL for their continued support of the team in general. And of course, Tom Lewandowski, and all of his setup expertise. And what he's been able to teach me in the last 2 years has been invaluable, and I couldn't ask for a better teammate. And once again, all of my other teammates that work hard each and every week, running laps, Danny Hansen, Brian Schoenberg, everybody that's over there, I can't thank them enough. And just once again, I hope Brian can cool off a little bit after this race, and I hope that we can talk it over before the night's over, and just try to come to a consensus and, shake hands virtually, of course, and go into Charlotte with clear heads. So hopefully that'll happen, and we should be good in Charlotte if we can shake all of this off.
And there's your winner, Mike Bonte, after leading 81 laps this evening, coming home with the win. And Joe, you can tell in his voice he's still a little bit upset, but as he mentioned, we'll see what happens in 2 weeks' time. I'm sure Brian and Mike will talk throughout this week. You've caught up with the driver that finished in position number 2 this evening, driver of the number 11, Brad Davies.
Brad Davies in the number 11, coming in second tonight. Brad, this is going to be a really special finish for you. It's been a while since we've seen you up here in the top 5.
Yeah, I got. I think I had a top 5 about a month ago somewhere. I can't remember, but this should be the second top 5 of the season, so I'm pretty happy about that. Just gonna try to keep the momentum going here.
Walk us through what happened in that incident with you and Danny Hansen and Kenny Humpy. We know that those two got in front together, right in front of you. What did you see from your perspective? What happened in your car?
Well, I was coming off a 2, and they had been racing pretty hard for a couple laps, and they got side by side in the middle of 2, and I believe Humpy was on the bottom and Danny was up high, and I'm not sure who got into who. I don't know if Danny hit the wall or if Kenny moved up and got into his left rear, but somehow they got together, and I was right there. I was coming with a run off of 2 since they were side by side, and when they got together, they just they checked up right in front of me, and I kind of ran into the back of Humpy, I think it was, and kind of crumpled up my nose of the car. So I was a little worried about overheating from there, but it really wasn't an issue because we had so many cautions from there on out.
You mentioned the key word there, cautions, and there was a lot of them tonight here at Pocono. How hard was it for you? How difficult was it for you to navigate all of those yellow flags and ultimately put a strategy together at the end that put you up in second?
Yeah, it was a little frustrating. I wanted to see some green flag runs, even though I didn't have the best car in the long run. There was quite a few guys that were better than me on the long run, but I wanted to see it go green just because that's the type of racing I like. But yeah, I thought it would be a better race just because the track is so big. Things would get spread out, and a lot of guys, kind of missed on the setup, I think, a little bit this week since this is the first race of the new build. So I did think it was going to go green, but unfortunately we did have a lot of cautions, which was kind of surprising.
Brad, 2 weeks' time, we're going to be at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Thoughts, feelings about that?
Charlotte, I don't know. I'm hearing there's a lot of grip there now, so it's going to be interesting to see how the car drives. I haven't run any laps yet myself, but she'll probably start on that in the next week or so. Hopefully it's a little bit better race than Pocono was. It's a little smoother. I think I'll like that. A lot of bumps at Pocono. It gets kind of frustrating, but hopefully we have some good side-by-side racing in a couple weeks.
We'll certainly see what happens in a couple weeks' time. I know it's a very plain car for you and the number 11 Chevrolet Super Sport. Who makes it work for you at the end of the day? Who's behind the Brad Davies team?
Well, not too many guys, but I got to thank the guys over at J Show, Brian Schoenberg and Tom Lewandowski and Michael Conti, Danny Hansen. They, we tested a little bit, shared some ideas, and came up with something pretty good. I think most of the cars from that team were in the top 5 or 10 for most of the race. So thanks to those guys.
Brad Davies driving the number 11 Chevrolet, finishing second tonight. Brad, congratulations on a big finish tonight, and we will see you in a couple weeks' time in Charlotte.
All right, thanks, guys.
Tony Stevens is caught up with the 2-time champion Ray Alfalla, finishing third tonight.
Certainly have caught up with the driver of the number 2, Ray Alfalla, and Ray, not a very bad run for you by any means. Finished on the podium here tonight in the 3rd spot, but how is your program doing after one race now with this new build and this basically new rules package? Do you think you're where you need to be?
No, not even close. We just missed it a little bit. We had really no idea, going into the race who was fast and who was not. We were pretty comfortable that we were decently fast, but everybody at J Show and Drill Isle was way faster than everybody else. Pretty sure I know why. So it's just go back to the drawing board on that. But I'll take third with a 6th or 7th place car.
Guess I really can't blame you there if you finished ahead of where you think you should have finished. What was the difference? Obviously, you don't want to give away all your secrets, I'm sure, but what is it that you think you are missing? You point out you think you know what it is.
We don't have Brad Davies rims. That's what it is. Did you guys see those things?
Those were sexy, weren't they?
Well, if that's what you want to call them.
Well, either way, I guess if that's what makes you fast and that's what does the trick for you, then you just got to put green rims on your race car. There's no question about it. Earlier in the race, though, working back a little bit, there was a close call during green flag pit stops. Peter Bennett was coming off the access road in turn 3, and you cut left on pit road. Did you have any idea he was there at all, or was that a near miss that you just about got yourself taken out?
Yeah, I saw him go to the access road in turn 3, and I figured he was going out slower, and I kind of said, well, I hope he's not there when I cut left, and I saw him, and I just kind of stayed in it till I cleared him and then braked.
And I guess that worked for you for sure. A couple times in the race we saw guys very out of shape. As far as the setups on these cars now, have you had to go back to driving these things as loose as you can stand them in order to get that fuel burn off, to get that car to tighten up? Or is that just a characteristic of this racetrack? Or why do you think we were seeing that so much tonight? And was it something you were fighting?
Yeah, I was really, really loose the whole race. I was tightening it up the whole race and made it too tight at the end. We were just struggling with speed, overall general speed. It wasn't really one thing or another. The car drives so different from anything we've driven in the past year. I would say the change from the V4 tire to the V5 new tire model is almost as big as the change from the old tire model to the new tire model. You can drive it off the right rear now. It's kind of snappy. There needs to be some work on the fall off, obviously. But I feel like the car is a lot more dynamic, and the driver has a lot more control in a sense. Different lanes actually work now because you can kind of go wherever you want with the car. And we don't even have dynamic surfacing yet, so that's good for the future, I think. The tire needs a lot of work, of course, but I feel it's a step in the right direction from what we had the past year or so.
Well, that's always encouraging to hear when you think they have made a step in the right direction. I would agree with you. Anytime that it seems like iRacing comes out with a new build, it's always a step in the right direction. I know you got a lot of people that make things happen with the Slip Angle group, and some of you had great runs tonight, some didn't, but who all does make it happen for the 2-car?
Yeah, big thanks to everyone on Slip Angle Motorsports. It's the way the season has been going with the race being canceled last race, and it seems like the season hasn't even started yet. It's only race 5. And main performance PC sim pedals, those pedals should be coming out soon, so look for those. They should be awesome. ProKit Consulting, newblockhosting.com, Disabled Racers, and also StemSimX. Big thanks to Peak for jumping on board. That's huge. And also everybody over at the Swan TeamSpeak, Swan/Pterodactyl TeamSpeak, for all the information and jokes under yellow. If not, I would know. I don't know what I'd do with myself if it wasn't for them under caution.
Well, it sounds like they've got you pointing in the right direction and headed exactly where you want to be. That's Ray Alfalla. Finishes 3rd here tonight, unofficially 2 points out of the point lead behind Chad Lawton, Tim Terry. Wow, that's a name we haven't heard at the top of the point battle for, well, hardly ever.
Well, he's been consistent the first 5 races of the season, and he comes home with position number 4 here this evening. Chad, I don't know if you caught what Tony just said, but unofficially, you are the point leader in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I've had a good start of the season. I think at the end of our Pro Series, I was talking to some DWC drivers, and they said the goal is to at least survive the first 6-7 races, and then from that point, some people will kind of drift off and do other things and not come on race on Tuesdays, and the races get better and a lot cleaner. But just trying to stay consistent and out of the way and be smart, and yes, I got the points lead for today.
Walk us through a night at Pocono Raceway. It looked like the 26 car was maybe a little bit better on the long run, but regardless, it seemed like you were somewhere near the top 5 for all of these 100 laps.
Yes, I definitely want to say I was the top Toyota in the race tonight, so that was a pretty cool deal. It was about 6 or 7 cars that definitely were about a tenth and a half faster than me, and then there was like me, Ray, myself, and Chris Overland, and I think Byron was there here and there. But it was kind of like a race between us four for like 7th to 10th, and then there was everyone else that wasn't really around us. But it was a pretty uneventful race. I just tried to keep my nose clean and everything I could to just keep track position, and the caution seemed to lie down about where we wanted it. We came home fourth, which is pretty awesome. 2 top 5s, or 2 back-to-back top 5s, so I'm happy.
This last year and a half or so, or I guess half year, has been pretty good for Chad Lawton. I include the Pro Series in there as well. Run the Pro Series, finish in the top 10 in points there. At the end of last season, after coming back from the break, you lit it up. There were some finishes there that really weren't indicative of where you were running. And then obviously at the start of this season, it's been pretty good so far for this 2016. What's the magic combination that keeps you up in front for most of these races?
This season I just came in motivated to run laps, where during Pro and kind of DWC towards the end of it, before I started running good, I wasn't into it and I wasn't motivated. And this season I told myself I'm going to do as many laps as I can take, and actually put forth effort. The more laps you do, whether you're making adjustments or not, you're going to improve. But I've learned to make some adjustments on my own, get the setup towards my driving style, and it's benefited me. And I think it's also, helped me become more consistent, and now I can work on being smarter instead of just learning to drive the setup every week.
You talked about that word earlier, survival. You survive 100 laps at Pocono, you become the point leader. We head 2 weeks' time to Charlotte, which is another long race. It's 200 laps. How do you survive at Charlotte, and what do you think this new build is going to react like at the Charlotte Motor Speedway?
I think it's going to be similar to tonight's stuff, our race. I think there's going to be about 8 or 9 people, maybe a little bit more people will figure it out, because they'll have a little bit more time with setup knowledge. But I seem to always run pretty good at Charlotte, so I think it's going to be, a good race. Hopefully we get some green flag pit stops and, have a good finish.
You got some great partners on this beautiful looking Toyota Camry. Who makes it happen for the 2016?
ViperTechnologies.com or ViperSR.com. Mason Baker Designs, I got him on the car. Obviously Toyota Racing and iRacing for giving us this awesome freaking car. I'm glad we got the Toyota. PSR TV, and that's about it.
And there is unofficially your new point leader, Chad Lawton, coming home in position number 4 here this evening. Great run for the 2016, keeping up the momentum that they had at the start of the season and throughout Pro and throughout the end of last season and all that other fun stuff. I believe Joe Cortez has caught up with a driver who actually had a fairly good Pro Series as well. Chris Overland comes home in position number 5.
Chris Overland comes home in position number 5 in that number 47 high-definition HDRN machine. And Chris, I got to ask you about your run here. Was 5th place ever crossed your mind from where you started running mid-pack tonight?
Oh, definitely. We've always been pretty good at Pocono. Counting the Pro Series win last season, and I've just always strived to be as good as I could be here because it's such a driver track. And it really comes down to who's got the perfect setup and driver combination. So, I definitely thought we had a good car, just kind of screwed up in Q, and cautions fell our way, and we ended up where I think we deserve to be.
You certainly ended up with a great finish tonight in 5th place. How hard was it, though, running through the middle of the field, running through the middle of the pack, and ultimately trying to work your way up through this field? How difficult was it starting 21st and running mid-pack for the first half of the race?
Well, it wasn't so much difficult as it was nerve-wracking, because these cars are so unpredictable, especially with this new tire. You can't really tell when someone's going to get sideways. No one's really comfortable with where they're at. And everybody was so squirrely in turn 3. It was really hard to know if the guy underneath you or the guy in front of you had control of his car. So, once I got more comfortable with my car, and once I got more comfortable with the edge I was driving it on, it got quite easy to race with people. But when it came to getting up to the top 5, it got really, really hard because everybody's different as far as setups go. There were people running the bottom, people running the top. But getting up there was pretty fun.
Pocono, a driver's track. How much did the new tire model affect that, though? How much did the new tire model affect this being a driver's track where you could really take control of this Gen 6 car?
Well, I know we spent a lot of time working on the setup because for some reason the tires just die off after a certain point. So that kept us working really hard on the setup, first off. But this new tire, when you have fresh tires, it seems like you can run almost anywhere and still be fast. So I was trying to utilize that to its full potential on the restarts, and it looked like everybody was trying to make different lanes work. I think I actually ran the second line through the tunnel turn a couple times and made that work. So it's definitely good when it comes to racecraft. As far as the tire itself falling off randomly like that, I'm not really happy with that, but I'm sure iRacing's working on it.
2 weeks' time, we go to the flat mile and a half at Charlotte. How does this top 5 affect you? How does this top 5 really get in your head and does it give you a confidence boost going into Charlotte in 2 weeks?
Definitely a confidence boost, considering when this new tire came out, we didn't really know what we were doing. Joey Brown, all the guys at Last Row Motorsports really worked hard this week to try to find something. We didn't really know how fast we were until we got into the race. But knowing that all the hard work we put in this week definitely paid off, and just, if I come to think of it, if it wasn't for Texas, I'd be right up there in the points with Chad and Ray and Jake. So, just if the luck falls our way, cautions come our way, and the setups just are as good as they usually are, we should be fine.
Chris, lots of stickers on this neon machine. Who makes it work for you, buddy?
First off, I'd like to thank the guys at the paint shop for splattering all this blue paint all over the place. I want to thank HD Radio Network, Hard Driving Radio, Double Clutch, Distorted Built, and Last Row Motorsports, along with Menards. This is an awesome car, and all the people behind it, all the people who do the behind-the-scenes stuff, make it fast every week. So I want to say thanks to all of them. Eddie Walczyk, I know he's watching. And for Peak for sponsoring this series. It's gotten so much recognition this year. It's unreal.
Chris Overland scores his second top 5 finish tonight at Pocono Raceway. Chris, great finish. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep, see you guys later.
Chris Overland's finishing 5th tonight in the number 47 HTRN machine. Tony, what a crazy race we saw tonight. Very long race, and I think we're all grateful to say that it's come, it's gone, and now we can all turn our attention to Charlotte.
2 weeks from now, we go to the mecca of American stock car racing, and that is Charlotte, North Carolina. The mile and a half, 24-degree bank quad oval, Bruton Smith's showplace of speed, and no better place, I would say, guys, to bring this series after week number 5 into week number 6, starting to get now into the meat of the season, and what ultimately is the longest race all season long. 300 miles at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, 200 laps. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be entertaining to see who can grasp this tire model, who wants to play the fuel mileage game, who wants to show their outright speed. As always, what in reality, in the physical world, is a 600-mile classic, well, this one is going to be the Tuesday night 300-mile classic, as Ken Squire would say. We always look forward to coming to Charlotte, and it's going to be a blast. But Pocono was tonight. Before we move on to Charlotte, Tim Terry, some final thoughts and observations from you now that 5 races are in the books of the 2014 Peak Antifreeze season.
Well, I think after this evening, the race officials are once again going to be busy. 9 cautions this evening, some of those happening within that 5-lap box after a restart. There's going to be some drivers that are going to be close, as Mike Conti mentioned, that he might be popped 8 points for what happened between him and Schoenberg, even though it looked like a very hard racing deal between those two. Tough break for Brian Schoenberg, because very animated driver that he was probably he was looking forward to possibly battling for his first win in the final 10 laps of the race. But we'll look forward next week to that Charlotte Motor Speedway, or 2 weeks' time, to the Charlotte Motor Speedway, and see what that race brings. Last season, if you can remember back, it was Joey Brown's first trip to victory lane in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Joey had a tough run this evening. I'm sure he'll be looking to rebound at a racetrack he knows like the back of his hand. Going to be exciting, Joe, once we hit that race. But as we mentioned, the race official is going to look at this. We saw what happened with Tyler Hudson in the last event. We might see a driver or two sitting out after this one with 9 cautions for the 100 laps that were run here this evening, and I can't wait to get back in 2 weeks' time.
I think if nothing else, the incident 1 month ago with Tyler Hudson set a new precedent here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze series. Now, with so much attention on the series, there's going to be much more scrutiny on each one of these drivers. There'll be a whole lot more scrutiny on how they're expected to behave and how they're expected to react. And I think we're going to see a lot more attention being paid to the quality of driving and how people are driving. And more importantly, decisions they make. There'll be a lot of drivers that'll be looking forward to putting Pocono behind them this season, and especially with a lot of premier tracks, a lot of fun tracks that these guys love to come to year after year, like Charlotte, like Michigan, like Kentucky, all coming up here in the schedule. It can only go up from here, and I've got a feeling business is about to pick up in a big way when we go racing in 2 weeks' time at the Mecca of Motorsports, Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Well, we certainly look forward to it, and we look forward to bringing it to you in 2 weeks' time on all these same iRacing broadcast partners here on PSR TV, as well as our simulcast channels such as the New England Sports Network, NESN, MRN Radio, and iRacing Brazil. On behalf of the entire PSR TV staff, Ian Bushing, Ilka Hapola, Chuck Johnson, Matt Thomas, of course, Tim Terry, Joe Cortez in the booth with me. I'm Tony Stevens, signing off saying we'll see you in 2 weeks from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Good night, everybody.